In a dark cave, the sharp sound of a pickaxe striking stone rings out. A young man with white hair pauses as he notices glowing blue droplets leaking from a crack in the ceiling. His eyes widen with excitement. He has finally found his target. He carefully positions a bottle to catch the falling liquid, identifying the glowing substance as ink. The young man thanks the small black cat on his shoulder, Nero, acknowledging the discovery was only possible because of him. He looks toward the light at the cave's exit, thinking that if he brings this ink back, the pioneering corps might finally accept him. Relieved, he walks out of the cave and stands on a gray wasteland, looking toward a massive, radiant metropolis in the distance. Inside that bright city, a crowd cheers for the arrival of elite warriors known as colorists, who walk proudly with vibrant hair colors. Two citizens admire the warriors, discussing how the team successfully took down another giant creature. They know that as long as these heroes are around, the shining city will remain safe. However, the scene shifts to the darker, grimmer Shadow District. A line of people waits outside a building where a bulletin board announces the entrance exam for the C-rank Pioneering Corps, stating that anyone with color is welcome. Suddenly, the white-haired young man is violently thrown out, crashing onto the ground. Two examiners look down at him. One yells that this place is not for people like him. The young man stands up in frustration, holding out the bottle of blue ink. He demands to know the problem, insisting the ink proves his qualifications. The examiner points a finger accusingly at the boy and spells out the harsh reality. He is rejected because he is colorless. He explains that in this world, roles are decided at birth and mocks the boy for not knowing his place. The red-haired examiner unleashes a surge of red energy, calling the young man a damn colorless. The white-haired protagonist flinches, groaning in pain as the energy washes over him. Standing at the top of the stairs, the examiner lectures the kneeling boy about pioneers. With an arrogant expression, he declares that only chosen people like himself are capable of becoming one. The examiner explains that the black lands outside the city are a place where the weak cannot survive, a terrifying landscape swallowed by darkness and filled with dangerous beasts known as creatures. He glorifies the pioneers who risk their lives to explore, gather resources, and fight these monsters for humanity, earning the title of heroes. Returning to the present, the examiner stares coldly at the protagonist, stating that for a colorless person, achieving such things is impossible. He insults the boy, telling him to know his place and stick to menial work. He issues a final threat, warning the boy he will die if he comes back, and slams the door shut. Left alone, the protagonist looks down as a soft sound comes from his chest. Nero, the black cat, pokes his head out of the boy's jacket. The protagonist pets the cat gently, saying they can just try somewhere else because he is used to this kind of rejection. Despite the humiliation, he forces a determined smile and promises Nero he will become the greatest colorist ever. He quickly tucks the cat back inside his clothes, worried someone might see him. The protagonist walks through the industrial streets, wondering where to go next. As he walks dejectedly, he hopes to find a place that will accept them, unaware he is being watched from above by a man with green hair. Later, the protagonist stands in a busy plaza, checking his notebook. He violently crosses out another location in a book filled with crossed-out names, realizing he has been rejected everywhere. He sighs, exhausted and defeated. Resigned, he approaches a building with a sign that reads, Mari Workshop, muttering that it can't be helped. He opens the door and calls out to the owner. Inside, a girl with white hair and goggles pushes up her glasses and welcomes him back with a cheerful smile. Mari notices the protagonist's gloomy expression and guesses he failed another exam. As Nero hops onto the table, she greets the cat warmly. She tries to cheer the protagonist up, insisting the examiners are blind to his talent. However, he remains discouraged, asking what good his strength is if no one will accept a colorless person. Mari argues that his skills are proven by the fact he successfully brings back resources from the dangerous Black Lands. The protagonist stays humble, claiming his survival is only possible because Nero helps him. Changing the subject, he places the bottle of blue ink on the table and asks if she can buy it. Mari is delighted and agrees to pay him well. She pours the blue liquid into a pipe system, complaining that ink prices have skyrocketed due to shortages. The protagonist notes this scarcity is why people are calling for more pioneers. A view of the machinery shows their livelihood depends on these colorful fluids. The protagonist sighs, frustrated that no corps will hire him. Mari asks if he has thought about her previous suggestion. When he hesitates, saying the place she mentioned seems a bit... Mari abruptly slams a piece of paper on the table, shouting that he has to try everything. The flyer reveals a recruitment notice for the S-rank Dawn Pioneering Corps, stating the entrance test is open to all and is based strictly on skill. The protagonist stares at the paper in shock. He admits he always hesitated to apply to the prestigious S-rank corps, assuming he would fail. He wonders if a place like that would really recognize his skills. Mari encourages him to take the chance, reiterating that if it is truly skill-based, he might finally get the acknowledgement he deserves. She smiles, reminding him he has wanted to be a colorist for a long time. A flashback shows a young, lonely protagonist in the rain clutching Nero, revealing he has held this dream since childhood. Mari assures him she will always support him. Bolstered by her confidence, the protagonist smiles and decides he can't hesitate anymore. He firmly grabs the recruitment flyer. With renewed determination, he waves goodbye to Mari and leaves the workshop. Walking through the quiet alleys of the Shadow District, the protagonist clutches the flyer, thinking he needs to prepare thoroughly for the exam. Suddenly, he halts as Nero reacts to a presence behind them. A voice casually asks what is wrong, and a hand holding a wooden wand tipped with a glowing green orb appears from the shadows. The green-haired man who had been spying on him aims his wand directly at the protagonist, a magical crosshair locking onto his back. Without hesitation, he fires a blade of green energy. The protagonist turns in shock, but he is too slow. The energy blast strikes him violently, causing him to scream in agony. As he collapses, the green-haired man and his assistant stand over him. The attacker mocks him, noting that although he dodged a direct kill shot, he will be dead soon anyway. Bleeding and unable to move, the protagonist lies on the pavement while the attacker coldly remarks that no one cares if a colorless person dies. The protagonist weakly calls out to his cat. Seeing Nero's terrified face peeking from his clothes, the boy uses his last ounce of strength to urge the cat to run away. The scene shifts to an industrial area, marked with a warning for an ink waste disposal site. The protagonist groans as he regains consciousness, only to see the green-haired man smiling down at him. The man holds him by the collar, dangling him over a massive vat of black sludge. He taunts the protagonist, saying it is unlucky for him to be thrown in while still alive. The attacker explains that the pit contains ink waste, a deadly mixture that dissolves anything it touches, ensuring no body will remain. Terrified, the protagonist struggles and demands to know who this man is and why he was attacked. The green-haired man reveals that he and his partner were shocked earlier when spying on him. A flashback shows that while watching, they hadn't been interested in the boy, but in the creature hiding in his jacket. The man explains that a creature with the intelligence to follow a human is an incredible discovery. He calls Nero a true rarity as he tightens his grip on the protagonist's throat. Behind him, his assistant holds up a small cage. Inside, Nero sits trapped and crying while the protagonist looks on in horror, realizing his companion has been captured. Desperate, the protagonist grabs the green-haired man's collar, screaming at him to let go of the cat. The attacker is unimpressed, mocking the boy's anger as pathetic. His eyes glowing with greed, he explains the creature is too valuable for a colorless owner and will be sold for a huge sum on the black market. He easily overpowers the boy, choking him and lifting him into the air, sneering that the pet is too good for him. As he hangs helplessly, the protagonist scolds himself for being careless in the Shadow District. He reflects on his lonely past, thinking that while he has always endured discrimination, he absolutely refuses to lose Nero, his only family, over something like this. With a burst of fury, he warns the man not to mess with him and tightens his grip on the attacker's arm. The green-haired man pauses, noticing something strange. His expression shifts from arrogance to shock as energy crackles around his face. A swirling green aura flows from the attacker into the protagonist's hands, and the man cries out in panic, feeling something being forcibly sucked out of his body. Terrified by this unknown sensation, the man violently shakes the boy off, throwing him backward into the vat of toxic ink waste. The attacker dismisses the encounter as a waste of time, while Nero cries desperately from his cage. The villains declare they are now rich and head to the black market, ignoring the cat's tears. Deep beneath the black liquid, the protagonist watches the light fade, hearing Nero's cries grow distant. He tries to swim, but his body is paralyzed. As memories flash before his eyes, he wonders if his story will end in this dark pit. However, a vision of his younger self clutching the cat appears. He realizes he cannot give up yet because he still has a promise to keep. Deep within a void, a mysterious voice asks the unconscious protagonist why he is doing nothing. Confused, the protagonist asks the voice to identify itself. Large text flashes before him, commanding him to accept it. A torrent of thoughts rains down, urging him to save Nero and accept his true color. The protagonist's face becomes obscured by shadow as the voice demands he take back his power. A hand reaches out from a swirling vortex of black liquid. The protagonist stands motionless as a tendril of darkness dissipates above him. He looks down at his hands, now wreathed in black energy, confused that he was inside the ink. His memories are fragmented, but he pushes those thoughts aside to focus on what matters. Now a silhouette of shadow with glowing white eyes, he questions what he has become. A soft whimpering sound cuts through the silence, catching the entity's attention. He looks up to see two blurry figures standing high above, holding a small cage. Inside, Nero cries out. The sight of his companion snaps the protagonist back to reality, and he affirms he must save Nero. He reaches a hand of darkness toward the men. Suddenly, a massive geyser of black energy erupts from the depths. The green-haired man and his assistant recoil in terror, screaming. They look down into the disposal pit and are shocked to see the deadly pool of ink has vanished, leaving only a lone, dark figure standing at the bottom. The entity, emanating an ominous aura, begins to walk toward them. The green-haired man trembles in fear, his eyes wide with disbelief. As a gigantic claw of shadow descends upon them, he stammers, wondering if this terrifying being is a creature. The aftermath of the explosion leaves a scene of total devastation in the Shadow District. A frantic older man screams at a police officer, insisting he saw a small hand suddenly spring out from nowhere, causing a massive eruption of dark energy that wrecked the entire area. As the dust settles, medics carry away the unconscious bodies of the green-haired attacker and his assistant. A new group of arrivals observes the victims. A man with red hair and a woman with blue hair look down at the injured men, noting that these B-rank pioneers have completely lost their color. The blue-haired woman is baffled, unable to understand what could drain a person's color, but her companion suggests they focus on their mission. The red-haired man states they came because of reports of a large creature appearing within the city. The police officer on site is stunned to realize he is speaking to a high-ranking colorist. He nervously asks why such elite individuals are in the Shadow District, and the blue-haired woman politely explains they are there to investigate. The red-haired man asks to be shown the impact site, and the intimidated officer leads the way. The two investigators stand before the massive crater. The red-haired man inspects the debris and notices dark stains, while his partner confirms there are traces of a creature. She points out it is highly irregular for one to appear suddenly inside the city, especially in the outskirts, explaining that usually only small animals are found within the city walls. Looking into the deep pit, the red-haired man wonders if they are dealing with a new monster variant. He looks bored but serious, realizing that tracking this unique entity will be troublesome since it doesn't fit the usual patterns. The scene shifts to a desolate landscape where rubble is piled high. In the darkness, a cat cries out. Kay, lying in the shadows, groans in pain. He feels a rough tongue and wakes up to find Nero licking his hair. Overcome with relief, Kay immediately pulls Nero into a tight hug, overjoyed that the cat is safe. However, the physical pain hits him, and he winces. Kay sits up, confused, and tries to piece together what happened. He remembers the bastards who attacked him and threw him into the vat, recalling falling into the toxic black liquid and sinking. His eyes widen in shock as he processes his survival. He holds up his hands in disbelief, wondering if the impossible has happened. He touches his head and feels something different. His hair, once white, is now jet black. Kay grips his new black hair, staring forward with utter confusion, unable to understand how he is still alive or why his appearance has drastically changed. Standing in the pitch-black darkness, Kay looks around, wondering why he cannot see anything. He calls out desperately to his companion, asking Nero to help. In response, the black cat leaps into the air and spins rapidly, emitting a blinding white glow that illuminates the area. The sudden light reveals a terrifying scene. They are in a deep cavern, surrounded by swarms of dark, monstrous creatures. Kay stares in shock, stammering as he tries to process where they are. He realizes with horror that they are in the Blacklands, a desolate wasteland far outside the city. He recalls this area, the Black Forest, is so deadly that only B-rank pioneers are permitted to enter. Realizing the monsters are swarming toward them, Kay panics. He yells for Nero to follow and immediately flees. The glowing cat flies alongside him, lighting the path as Kay runs for his life. He barely dodges a massive, shadow-like serpent, exclaiming that the situation is incredibly dangerous. Despite the danger, Kay thanks Nero for the light as they race through the dark forest. They scramble up rocky cliffs to escape the beasts chasing them, and Kay follows Nero's light as they jump down a deep, vertical drop to put distance between themselves and the horde. As he runs, Kay's expression shifts from fear to confusion as he notices something strange about his physical condition. He looks at his chest, where dark energy radiates, and realizes his body feels amazing. He notes with surprise that even after running for so long, he is not tired at all. He leaps across a wide chasm with incredible ease, realizing he is moving faster and with more agility than ever. He lands firmly, stunned by the realization that his body is overflowing with a new, mysterious energy. Nero senses danger first, his ears perking up as he notices a threat approaching. A ferocious, wolf-like shadow creature lunges at Kay, catching him off guard. Kay realizes too late that his defensive stance is weak and he cannot block the attack. Certain he is about to die, he squeezes his eyes shut and braces for the bite. The monster's teeth clamp down hard on Kay's arm, but instead of tearing skin, a loud cracking sound echoes. The beast's teeth shatter completely upon impact, leaving the creature confused. Kay opens his eyes, stunned to find himself alive. The shadow wolf, now toothless and terrified, whimpers and retreats into the bushes. Kay inspects his arm and realizes he is completely fine, without a scratch. He looks at his hands in disbelief, thinking a hit like that should have been fatal. His eyes widen as he finally understands that this durability is the power of color he has been searching for. Suddenly, heavy tremors shake the ground, drawing both Kay's and Nero's attention. A massive silhouette begins to rise from the darkness, towering over them. A giant, one-eyed monster climbs over the ridge, glowing with menacing energy. Kay stares up in horror, identifying the beast as a cyclops. As the monster raises a massive arm to crush him, Kay wonders why a predator that usually lives deep in the Black Forest is this far out. The cyclops slams its fist into the ground with explosive force, causing Nero to yelp as debris flies everywhere. Kay survives the impact, sitting amidst the rubble. He admits the blow was heavy, but a confident grin spreads across his face as he realizes he actually has a chance to win. Memories of his past, being a lonely child, facing rejection, and being beaten down, flash through his mind. He acknowledges that he has finally obtained the power he always longed for and decides things will be different now. Energy crackles around his arm as he clenches his fist, resolving that he does not need to run away anymore. Kay stands his ground, clenching his fist as he resolves he is done running. Memories of his past struggles flood his mind. He focuses on that strange, powerful sensation rising from within, and suddenly, his body is engulfed in shadow. He transforms into a being of pure dark energy with glowing white eyes. The Cyclops roars furiously and reaches out with its giant hand to crush the small figure. However, Kay launches himself off the ground with explosive force. Flying through the air, he prepares to strike. He delivers a devastating punch that completely shatters the giant monster into pieces. The force of the blow creates a massive shockwave that blasts through the landscape, clearing a path through the trees. Kay soars through the air, surrounded by the debris of his enemy. He remains in his transformed state for a moment, but then his eyes widen as he notices something changing. The dark energy suddenly dissipates, and he finds himself floating high above a lush landscape under a bright sun. He looks down in awe at the vibrant forest and the waterfall below, amazed by the vivid colors of nature around him. Just as quickly as it came, the power vanishes, and his hair turns back to white. He looks down in confusion. Panic sets in as he realizes gravity is taking over, and he is helpless in the air. Screaming in terror, he falls rapidly toward the trees and crashes into the forest below. Kay drags himself out of the debris from his fall, while Nero hovers above, looking concerned. Kay collapses to his knees, gasping for air as the dark energy that enveloped him begins to evaporate like smoke. He realizes with horror that his color is rapidly fading away. Panic sets in as Kay understands the drawback of his new ability. He realizes that the more he uses this intense power, the faster it drains from his body, and at this rate, he will be left defenseless. Suddenly, the world around him goes pitch black, and a mysterious voice echoes in his mind, asking him what he is waiting for. The voice commands him to act, pointing out that the prey is lying right in front of him and urging him to eat it quickly. Kay looks down at the scattered remains of the Cyclops he just defeated. The voice manipulates him, asking if he wants to live, and instructing him to simply reach out his hand. Exhausted and sweating, Kay struggles to stay conscious. He looks desperate as the voice continues to demand he use his hand. His eyes glow faintly as he fights for survival. Trembling, he obeys the instinctual command and reaches his hand toward the monster's remains. Kay places his hand firmly on the carcass of the Cyclops. Immediately, a dark technique activates, and he begins to absorb the shadowy energy lingering in the monster's body. Nero watches with wide, shocked eyes as his owner performs this terrifying feat. A massive pillar of black light erupts from the forest, piercing the sky as Kay fully consumes the energy. As the light fades, Kay is left panting heavily, the exhaustion slowly leaving his body. He leans back against a rock, his hair black once again, and his energy restored. He looks up at the sky, letting out a sigh of immense relief, realizing that he is going to survive. Back at the Mari workshop, the day seems peaceful. Inside, Mari is working on a blueprint when the door chime catches her attention. She looks up to see a mysterious, silhouetted figure in a ragged cloak standing in the doorway. Trying to be polite, Mari welcomes the stranger with a smile, though she is already trembling with nervousness. She asks if they have a special request, but the hooded figure simply stands there, emanating a dark aura. The stranger takes a heavy step forward. Mari, now visibly nervous, calls out to him, pointing out that he looks suspicious. When he continues to approach, she panics and grabs a large wrench, warning him that she will attack if he comes any closer. The figure suddenly rushes toward her, causing Mari to scream in terror and squeeze her eyes shut. However, the intruder stops and pulls back his hood, revealing a familiar smile. He tells her to calm down. Kay reveals his face, scratching his head sheepishly. He tells her it is just him, though he admits he barely recognizes himself now. Mari drops her defensive stance, her eyes wide with shock. She stammers, unable to process the drastic change in his features. Her voice echoes outside as she screams in disbelief, demanding to know what happened to his appearance. Mari is shaking, clutching a metal pipe in fear as she faces the hooded figure. Suddenly, her fear turns into explosive rage. She pulls out a hammer and a wrench, screaming that she won't forgive the bastards who hurt him. She swings the tools wildly, shouting that they deserve to have their heads smashed, while Kay frantically tries to calm her down, assuring her he is fine. Realizing it is truly him, Mari sets the wrench down, admitting she got carried away because she was terrified after losing contact with him. Her expression softens into a relieved smile, and she tells Kay she is happy he is safe. Kay apologizes for making her worry. Internally, Kay reflects on the absurdity of his situation, thinking that surviving a fall into toxic ink and gaining a color is unbelievable. He voices a concern to Mari, noting that his new color is black, which is associated with monsters, and wonders if people will look at him in a bad light. However, he quickly brushes the worry aside, deciding that what matters is that he finally has the chance to become a colorist. He declares he will go straight to the Pioneering Corps entrance exam and thanks Mari for her help. Kay then sheepishly asks if he can borrow some clothes, promising to return them. Mari looks exasperated, sighing and asking how many times he is going to beg. However, she smiles warmly, telling him to consider it an investment in a future colorist. She suddenly grabs Kay's hand and pulls him along, telling him to follow her. Kay looks surprised as she cheerfully announces she has the perfect items for him. The scene shifts to a large crowd of aspiring pioneers, marching up the stairs of a massive Colosseum-like building. Inside, hundreds of participants gather on the floor, which is marked with large white square platforms, preparing for the exam. Among the crowd, a group of 3 men chats nervously. A man with blue hair and the number 183 on his chest tries to calm his anxious friend. The friend with pinkish hair expresses disbelief that they have made it this far, preparing to take the test for the prestigious Dawn Pioneering Corps. This S-rank group is known for its achievements in exploring the dangerous Black Lands, comprised of skilled colorists who are viewed as the hope of the Shining City. However, the candidates are worried because many strong rivals have gathered. The group notices a woman with long turquoise hair, rumored to be the daughter of a famous color family, standing next to a man in a beanie. They also spot other rising stars, such as a boy with pink hair and goggles and a man in a gas mask. Despite these competitors, the group agrees that one person is getting the most attention. They look toward a young man with messy green hair and fierce eyes. This is Gale, the Gale Sword, and people believe he is guaranteed to pass. Rumors say he is powerful enough to handle dangerous creatures on his own. However, he is also infamous for his cruel and violent nature, which reportedly got him kicked out of his previous corps. The blue-haired man, number 183, laughs arrogantly, claiming he isn't scared of guys like Gale. Suddenly, a dark shadow falls over him. Gale appears directly behind the boasting man, daring him to say that again. The blue-haired man freezes in terror as Gale looks down on them with contempt, calling them ridiculous brats. Gale walks away, sighing with disappointment. He complains that despite this being an S-rank exam, the competition is incredibly low. As he looks out over the participants, he mentally crosses them all out, thinking there isn't a single standout among them. However, his eyes narrow as he spots one exception, the turquoise-haired girl. He identifies her as Ellie Cyan, the second daughter of the Cyan family. Gale smirks, admitting she is at least decent enough to be noticed. As he reaches a hand out toward the crowd in his imagination, he wonders with anticipation how they will all react to the upcoming test. A mechanical speaker crackles to life, calling for the candidates' attention. Gale and Ellie turn their heads toward the stage as the voice declares that the entrance exam for the Dawn Pioneering Corps is officially beginning. A man with bright blonde hair and yellow eyes stands on the podium, announcing that the test starts now. The crowd gasps, realizing the examiner is a famous colorist from the Dawn Pioneering Corps. The candidates whisper excitedly, recognizing him as a hero who made huge contributions to a recent creature hunt. They realize that if an elite colorist like him has shown up, the Corps must be serious about this recruitment. The candidates feel an overwhelming presence radiating from him, noting that S-rank Corps members are on a different level. The examiner looks down at the crowd and welcomes them. He thanks everyone for applying, acknowledging they all have their own goals, whether money, power, honor, or duty. However, he states coldly that none of those reasons actually matter. His eyes glowing, the examiner explains that in the end, only skill allows a person to achieve anything. He declares they are looking for overwhelmingly strong candidates capable of venturing into the Black Lands to reclaim human territory. He tells them to look around, stating that mediocre people are not needed and that they will start immediately. He gestures to the square platforms on the ground, announcing the first test will be a tournament. He explains that combat ability is the most important skill for a pioneer because the world outside the city is a brutal place where only the fittest survive. He clenches his fist and commands the candidates to prove their abilities. He explains that those who pass the first round will be decided by the tournament results and instructs them to step onto the stage when their number is called. The examiner calls out number 126 and number 286. Gale, number 126, steps forward with a serious expression. The crowd murmurs, calling Gale a heavyweight and expressing pity for whoever has to fight him so early. Gale, however, lets out a wicked smile, thinking he is lucky to have some fun right from the start because he was dying of boredom. His eyes narrow with predatory excitement as he wonders how he should play with his opponent. Gale notices someone approaching the stage, wondering what is up with the creepy guy walking toward him. Standing opposite Gale is a figure completely hidden in a ragged cloak wearing the number tag 286. Gale analyzes him, thinking the hooded figure's stance looks awkward and weak. Gale grips the hilt of his weapon, deciding talking doesn't matter anymore. He draws his sword with a sharp sound, declaring he is tired of being quiet. Unleashing his power, he swings his blade, creating massive streaks of green wind energy, deciding not to hold back. The spectators watch in awe, recognizing the signature technique as the Gale Sword. As glowing green swords materialize in the air around him, the crowd praises him as a genius for handling such advanced swordsmanship at his age. Gale stares intensely at his opponent, challenging the hooded figure to try and block his attack. With a burst of speed, Gale stomps the ground to gather momentum, threatening to shred his opponent if he fails to defend himself. He charges forward with incredible force, surrounding himself in a whirlwind of energy. The hooded figure stands completely still and silent, unmoving in the face of the approaching attack. As Gale descends from the air, swinging his blade down with a shout, the hooded figure simply steps in and delivers a devastating left hook to Gale's face. The impact is so powerful that Gale is sent flying backward across the arena. The arrogant candidates from earlier scream in terror at the unbelievable sight. Gale crashes violently into the arena wall, creating a massive spiderweb of cracks. He slumps forward, unconscious and defeated in a single hit, leaving the crowd to wonder how such a thing is even possible. The hooded figure, now revealed to be Kay, rubs his wrist and looks down, admitting that the sudden movement startled even him. His hood has fallen back, revealing his messy black hair. He reflects on the sudden acceleration and chaos of the moment. Suddenly, a spectator points a trembling finger at Kay, screaming in disbelief. He isn't pointing at the victory, but at the color of Kay's energy, black. The blonde examiner watches with a serious expression, noting internally that black is the same color possessed by creatures. Even Ellie Cyan looks stunned, wondering if it is even possible for a human to possess that color. Kay stands alone in the center of the arena, unaware of the gravity of the situation. The others question if the power to defeat the Gale Sword in one hit comes from this mysterious black energy. Kay looks around nervously at the shocked crowd, confused by their reaction, and innocently wonders if he has made a mistake. The tournament continues with intense battles. In one match, a terrified candidate launches sharp stones, but Kay charges forward, easily evading them. He closes the distance instantly and delivers a powerful punch, sending the magic user flying. The announcer declares him the winner. Kay's winning streak continues as he dominates, violently slamming another opponent and knocking out a third. High above, the blonde examiner watches with interest, declaring that Kay is the standout applicant. He excitedly notes that Kay is the first ever black holder and insists they must recruit him immediately before rumors spread. Suddenly, heavy footsteps approach, and a voice casually remarks that it looks like a tough day. The blonde examiner turns in surprise to see the red-haired man and blue-haired woman from the explosion site. The examiner asks why Team Leader Red is here, but the man waves his hand, claiming they are just passing by. They briefly discuss the investigation into the large creature incident. The Red Leader sighs, admitting there has been no progress. He then asks if there are any worthy candidates. The examiner mentions the young lady from the Tyan family and an extremely unique candidate. Suddenly, the Red Leader's eyes widen as he senses something. He looks into the arena and spots Kay, immediately noticing the black energy. As the examiner praises Kay, the Red Leader stares silently at the boy. The blue-haired woman whispers to her leader, asking if that kid is connected to their investigation. The Red Leader confirms it is likely him. Internally, the Red Leader concludes that a new color appearing right after the incident in the Shadow District is too big of a coincidence to ignore. He decides to keep a close watch on Kay for now. Unaware he is being observed, Kay looks at his clenched fist, smoking with dark energy. He is thrilled by his incredible power, realizing that becoming a pioneer is finally possible. However, he recalls the physical toll the transformation took and warns himself to be careful. He knows that if he overuses this power and loses his color mid-fight, he will be defenseless. A massive surge of freezing energy erupts from the arena, creating a wall of ice. Ellie Kyan stands calmly amidst the cold mist. The announcer declares number 17 the winner, revealing she has encased her opponent in a solid block of ice. The spectators, including Kay, watch in awe, commenting that the Tyan family's color is always impressive. As Ellie walks down the stairs, Kay watches her, wondering how anyone could defeat such overwhelming magic. Suddenly, Ellie stops as she passes Kay, staring directly at him with a sharp, curious gaze. Her blue eyes narrow suspiciously as she scrutinizes him. Without a word, she turns and continues walking, leaving Kay confused. The announcer says the first exam has concluded. The blonde examiner stands on the podium and thanks everyone for their hard work. He explains that since they are behind schedule, they will move straight to the next test. He instructs the failed candidates to leave, and they walk away dejectedly. The blonde examiner begins to announce the next test, but is interrupted by a hand on his shoulder. The red-haired man steps forward with a confident smile, taking over. He looks at the surviving candidates and declares that the second exam will be led personally by him. The candidates look up in shock, realizing who is standing before them. Colorist Red. He is one of the Shining City's strongest colorists, famous for retaking the Blacklands. However, the candidates are terrified, recalling rumors that his destructive power is so intense that even allies hesitate to work with him, and that when he is in charge of an exam, no one ever passes. The blonde examiner looks worriedly at Colorist Red, asking if he is sure, warning that the captain will scold him for changing the exam format. Red laughs it off, stating he gets nagged every day anyway. He announces that the test is simple and tells the crowd to just endure as his body erupts in massive flames. A giant wave of fire surges toward the terrified applicants, forming individual spherical barriers around each person, trapping them. The candidates panic as they are enveloped in intense heat. Red explains that he has recreated the environment of a certain region, noting it will get pretty hot. He illustrates that the Blacklands are full of extreme environments where humans can barely survive. He belittles the current test, claiming this heat is nothing more than a warm stove. With a serious expression, Red reiterates that if they endure, they pass. However, his eyes narrow coldly, as he adds that anyone unable to withstand this heat never had the qualification to become a pioneer. Inside the fire spheres, the candidates are suffering. One man realizes he cannot scratch the barrier, while others scream in agony. They wonder in terror what kind of hellish place the Blacklands must be if this is considered mild. Watching from the side, the blonde examiner notes that despite rumors, Red's skills haven't dulled. He marvels at Red's incredible control, observing how he instantly covered so many people. He acknowledges that this power is what one expects from someone at the peak. Suddenly, a loud cracking sound cuts through the air. Red and his assistant look over as one of the fire barriers turns blue and fractures. A massive surge of ice energy explodes outward, shattering the fire sphere. Amidst the falling shards of ice, Ellie Kyan stands tall, having broken free. Red looks at her, admitting that this is pretty good. He reflects that while the Kyan family's power is a natural counter to fire, his own power is usually strong enough to overwhelm that advantage. Staring at the young woman, Red concludes she might actually deserve to be called a real prodigy. Red wonders about the other candidate they were interested in. Inside his fire sphere, Kay appears to be standing still. Red observes him, noting that unlike the girl, this boy isn't breaking through. He admits he didn't expect much from him. However, inside the barrier, Kay is panicking, screaming internally that he is in big trouble. He realizes he used too much of his color during the fight with the Gale Sword. He looks at his hand in horror, noticing his black energy is leaking out and draining faster in the heat. Kei imagines a terrifying future where his power runs out. He knows if he is revealed to be colorless, he will likely be experimented on. Desperate, he frantically looks for a solution, wondering if he can absorb something to replenish his energy. He stares at the wall of intense fire. A realization hits him. Since the barrier is made of a color ability, he wonders if he can absorb it. He looks at his hand, admitting he doesn't know the limits of his absorption power. Deciding he has no time to think, he resolves to find out. He reaches out and touches the swirling wall of fire. Immediately, a violent reaction occurs, and Kei is shocked that direct absorption is working. The fire barrier begins to warp and twist, drawing the attention of nearby candidates. A massive vortex of black energy erupts from Kei, sucking the red flames into his hand. From the podium, Red and the blonde examiner stare down, stunned and unable to comprehend what they are seeing. Red breaks into a nervous sweat, forcing a smile as he remarks they have found a real lunatic. In the arena, Kei stands amidst the dissipating energy, looking terrifyingly powerful with red and black aura swirling around his hands. The entire arena falls into a heavy silence. However, internally, Kei is panicking again. He forces a smile, thinking this wasn't supposed to happen. He realizes with regret that he has accidentally stood out way too much. Ellie Cayenne stands frozen, questioning if she is hallucinating as she stares at the young man enveloped in dark energy. She looks at Kei and wonders if black is even a color a human can possess. Recognizing this is something unprecedented, a sense of anxiety washes over her as she watches him. Memories of the pressure to be the best flash through her mind. She is forced to admit that Kei is undeniably strong. She realizes that even with her full power, she could not guarantee a win. As Kei walks away, Ellie thinks that there is something about him that cannot be explained by strength alone, asking herself what he actually is. She quickly shakes her head, trying to dismiss the disturbing thoughts. Colorist Red approaches Kei and casually wraps an arm around his shoulder, telling him next time won't be like this. Red smiles, remarking that the black ability to suck everything in was wild and he cannot hold back his curiosity. He guides Kei away, suggesting they have a private conversation to protect Kei's privacy while he satisfies his own questions. Kei, sweating nervously, asks about the exam status. Red assures him that with a power level like that, he obviously passes. Kei is stunned, realizing drawing so much attention worked in his favor. He is overcome with emotion, thinking he has finally achieved his dream of becoming a pioneer. Suddenly, the blonde examiner yells at Red for acting on his own. Red laughs it off, asking his colleague to overlook it just this once. The examiner sighs and announces that despite the interruption, the exam will continue. He clarifies that number 17, Ellie, has passed because she broke the barrier, but the other candidates will undergo an additional test. Ellie ignores the announcement, her gaze fixed on the dark tunnel where Red is leading Kei away. The scene shifts to an industrial setting. Red stands outside a car with Kei, while the blue-haired investigator sits in the driver's seat. Red tells her to wait. Kei looks at his surroundings, and his expression turns to pure shock. He stares at a massive landscape of rubble and destruction, realizing with horror that Red has brought him back to the exact location where he fell into the ink waste. Colorist Red looks over the devastated ruins, remarking that it is an ugly sight. He explains that a major incident occurred here, causing Kei to freeze. Red recounts that for the first time in history, 2 pioneers were found completely drained and colorless. He adds that eyewitnesses saw a massive creature at the site. Red turns sharply toward Kei, pointing out the suspicious timing. He notes that shortly after that creature appeared, Kei emerged as the first person to possess the color black, calling it a coincidence. His eyes glowing, Red analyzes Kei's power, describing it as an ability that absorbs other colors. Kei sweats nervously as Red stares him down, declaring this is a completely foreign ability. Internally, Kei panics, realizing Red suspected the connection from the start. He frantically wonders if he can run, but looking at the man's overwhelming aura, he realizes it is impossible to escape from a hero. Suddenly Red laughs, breaking the tension. He waves his hand, admitting he was just testing Kei, but complains Kei's honest reaction took the fun out of it. Kei looks at him in confusion. Red clarifies that while his official job is to investigate the incident, he is personally more interested in Kei's unique ability. Red explains that color powers normally cannot mix at all. However, he observes that Kei's ability seems to ignore those rules. He recalls the second exam, pointing out that Kei clearly couldn't control his power then. Kei stammers, trying to explain, but Red interrupts him. The colorist's body begins to glow with red energy, and he states that they need to run a test. Kei looks at him, confused. Red extends his hand, explaining that he needs to understand how the ability works. He smiles confidently, challenging K to try absorbing his energy now. K panics and tries to refuse, warning Red it is too dangerous. Red simply laughs, telling the rookie he is far too early to be worrying about someone of his level. K falls silent, looking intense and nervous as Red commands him to stop talking and just try it. Black symbolizes the Black Lands, an ominous force that devours everything. Red thinks that leaving such a dangerous ability unchecked is unacceptable because it could shake the foundation of the Shining City. A dark secret crosses his mind. People do not know it yet, but humanoid creatures exist. He silently warns K that if he ever faces them, or worse, becomes one, the colorist might have to eliminate him. K sighs, sensing the terrifying pressure radiating from Red. Despite the intimidation, K agrees to the test. He grabs Red's wrist, nervously asking for confirmation that if anything goes wrong, it won't be his fault, while dark energy rises from his body. The moment they touch, a shockwave of energy distorts the air. K gasps as red energy violently surges into his arm, contrasting with his own black aura. He realizes he has made a mistake. A massive explosion of fire erupts from the contact point, causing K to scream in agony. Inside the inferno, he shouts for Red to stop, admitting he cannot control the power and that it feels like molten lava is boiling inside him. In his vision, Red appears as a towering, godlike silhouette of pure fire, reinforcing why he is a hero. Red stands calmly within the flames, observing. He notes that K's black energy is sucking in his power without rest, acting as if it is starving. He realizes that because K's power is immature, strong individuals can resist the absorption, but this ability would be instantly fatal to most ordinary people. As the flames swirl, Red's eyes narrow with deeper curiosity. He thinks what they saw during the exam cannot be the full extent of the ability. He decides he wants to know not just how K absorbs colors, but how those absorbed colors are used. The situation escalates as the energy between the two violently reacts. Red watches as the black energy from K's arm begins to warp and spike, mixing with the red aura. Suddenly, a massive explosion of red and black energy bursts outward. Red is pushed back by the blast. He stares in shock at the figure emerging from the smoke. K has partially transformed. The right side of his body is now encased in a jagged demonic armor of solidified red and black energy. Red grits his teeth, realizing this form is ominously familiar. As he looks at the monstrous clawed hand and glowing eye, Red admits to himself that he would believe he was looking at a creature. The resemblance confirms his suspicions, and he realizes with certainty that K was behind the incident where the other pioneers lost their colors. K struggles to maintain consciousness. Red decides that his priority is safety and resolves to put out the fire before K goes on a rampage. He summons a ball of flame, preparing to subdue K by force. However, K lets out a low growl, causing Red to pause as the boy seems to be fighting something else. The scene shifts to K's internal perspective, a pitch-black void filled with demanding red text. The voices of the power scream at him, demanding intense color and urging him to bring more. K gasps in the real world, distressed by these intrusive voices. The voices continue to tempt him, telling him it is wasteful to hold back and urging him to take it. K mentally screams at the voices to shut up and stay still. With fierce determination, K's visible eye glows red. He rejects the temptation, ordering the power to shut up and stay crushed as he exerts his will over the chaotic energy. A shockwave blasts outward as he forcibly compresses the energy back down. The jagged armor dissipates, leaving Red with a look of genuine surprise. K is left panting heavily from the exertion. Red looks at him, impressed and stunned, asking if the rookie actually managed to suppress that overwhelming power on his own. K is left panting, his heart racing. He thinks it is insane that he survived and frantically wonders why he went berserk. He glances up nervously, terrified he lost control in front of a colorist. Knowing he needs to understand his ability, he hesitantly approaches the older man. Red, however, looks delighted. He admits he was caught off guard because the power K absorbed was stronger than he expected, but he grins and declares the experiment a success because it was fun. He tells K that if he wants to achieve anything, he has to be willing to take risks. Red decides that is enough for the test, but then pauses, saying there is one more thing. He reminds K that he is the investigator assigned to the destruction incident at this very spot, and his duty is to find the culprit. With a calm but threatening smile, he points out that the person in front of him looks like a perfect suspect. K freezes, his face pale with panic. Red explains the gravity of the situation. He recalls how witnesses saw a massive shadow creature, warning K that more people are interested in this case than he thinks. He argues that once rumors about K's black ability spread, it will be easy for authorities to pin the blame on him. He gestures to the ruined industrial district, noting the damages will cost hundreds of millions. He adds that if the city leadership decides K is too dangerous, he could be banished or turned into a lab rat. K grits his teeth in frustration, realizing he is trapped. He knows there is no way to prove his innocence. Suddenly, Red offers a lifeline. He suggests that if K agrees to come under his command, he might be able to do something. Without a second of hesitation, K bows at a 90-degree angle, loudly shouting that he puts himself in Red's care. Red tells him to listen to the full condition first. He clarifies he won't fix everything for free. In exchange, K will have to grant him a few favors. He asks if K thinks he can handle that. K forces a desperate, trembling smile. Internally, he screams that anything is better than owing millions or becoming a science experiment. He loudly agrees, promising to do absolutely anything Red needs. In the desolate wasteland, a small creature trembles in fear just moments before a massive wheel slams down, narrowly missing it as a heavy vehicle roars past. A large armored transport truck drives through the foggy, rugged terrain of the Blacklands. Inside, K looks out the window, thinking this is his first time traveling this far out and wondering if this is his first real step as a pioneer. Suddenly, his thoughts are interrupted by Gale, a green-haired man who glares at him, calling him black-haired one. Gale rudely tells K he is being distracting and orders him to shut up, though K hasn't said a word. K looks at him with a confused expression. K sits awkwardly in the transport bay. He thinks starting as a pioneer immediately was what he wanted, but the atmosphere is tense. He glances at the furious Gale and the silent Ellie Cyan, questioning if being on the same team is the right move. A flashback reveals a conversation from the day before. Red asks a surprised K if he is ready to join the exploration, explaining he needs him to go to a specific spot in the uncharted area. Seeing K's nervous expression, Red laughs and tells him not to worry. Red shows K a map, assuring him he won't be alone. He explains that new recruits who pass the exam will also be deployed to the area, and that the official roadmap will be announced soon. K just needs to be at the location on time. Back in the present, K looks at his teammates, noting they were already on the truck. It is revealed that because Red's interference compromised the previous exam, the participants were given another chance. Many skilled individuals, including Gale, passed strict additional tests. Meanwhile, Ellie Cyan, the top-ranked rookie, joined Red's team at her own specific request. Gale stares at K with intense resentment, unable to believe he was humiliated by a fool. He thinks back to their fight, convinced he only lost because he let his guard down for a moment, and vows it won't happen again. He threatens K, warning him to be ready once the exploration ends. He mutters that if Ravian hadn't been behind him, K would already be dead. Ellie Cyan interrupts, coldly telling Gale to stop talking, mocking him that he would probably fall in one hit again. Gale turns to her in fury, asking what she just said. Ellie dismisses him, stating that Gale is no match for K. K looks at Ellie with surprise and hope, thinking maybe she is someone he can relate to. However, Ellie turns her cold gaze to K, confusing him by mentioning a past agreement they supposedly made. She glares at him, stating that the loser needs to stay quiet and follow orders, leaving K bewildered. K stands awkwardly between the two hostile pioneers, feeling the pressure. He sighs, realizing the team dynamic will be difficult to manage. The scene shifts as the transport vehicle moves across the dark waters of the wasteland towards a distant facility. The vehicle arrives at a bustling loading dock with workers moving supplies. The group disembarks. K, Ellie, Gale, and the other recruits walk out into the forward base for the Dawn Pioneering Corps. K is in awe of the high level of activity, noting the S-Rank Corps' exceptional supplies, something he didn't realize when he ventured into the Blacklands alone. Suddenly, a finger pokes K's cheek, startling him. He turns to see a smiling Mari, who cheerfully explains that since this is his first mission, she had to come along to support him. Mari opens her jacket, revealing Nero has tagged along. K holds the black cat, thanking Mari for taking care of him. She smiles warmly, saying Nero is family. She explains she got a great opportunity to join the exploration team as support staff, stating her skills are useful here. A loudspeaker announces it is assembly time. The crowd of pioneers stands in the gray wasteland as the announcement continues that they will soon enter the Blacklands. K hands Nero over to Mari, telling her to take care of him. Mari warns him not to do anything dangerous, and he smiles, telling her he will see her later. Mari hugs Nero, but the cat suddenly leaps out of her arms, startling her. She shouts Nero's name as the cat runs toward K and sinks into the shadow on the ground. Mari's eyes widen in shock at this unnatural movement. She stammers, trying to call out to K, confused. The group arrives at a dark, fortified cave entrance. At the front, a woman with bright orange hair and a white coat shouts for everyone to prepare, announcing a new recruit is about to enter the Blacklands. She yells that safety is the top priority. She warns that reconnaissance has reported unidentified dangerous creatures in Area 21, a very dangerous zone where an A-rank creature's body was found. Suddenly, a male pioneer runs up to the orange-haired woman, calling her Arancia. He nervously reports that the red team leader has brought the new recruits, but they have left their formation without permission. Arancia's eyes widen in shock, and she asks if it's true. The messenger confirms it, and Arancia sighs that guy is causing trouble again. The group secretly enters a dark canyon, moving away from the main army. Colorist Red reaches his hand into the shadows, leading the way. The small squad, consisting of Kay, Gale, Ellie, and Red, separates from the formation. Kay nervously asks the team leader if this is okay, pointing out that the main team is heading in a different direction. Red confirms that their destination is different. Kay looks back at Gale and Ellie, worried because the squad is all new recruits. Gale suddenly snaps, demanding to know why he and Ellie had to follow, shouting that he heard Red only intended to take Kay, and he feels insulted. Red smiles, his red aura flaring. He explains that his personal guidance isn't something just anyone can receive, so it wouldn't be fair if Kay was the only one to benefit. He assures the angry Gale that while he won't spoon-feed them, he also won't let them get seriously hurt. He cuts the conversation short, ordering them to move out. Kay's eyes widen as they encounter enemies. Deep inside a cavern, the group is surrounded by shadow creatures. While Red holds a lantern, Kay, Gale, and Ellie engage in a chaotic melee. A massive wolf-like beast lunges out of the darkness. Ellie Cyan reacts instantly, her blue energy sword piercing through the creature's body. She lands gracefully, realizing this is the reality of the Black Lands. Surrounded by glowing eyes, she notes the suffocating environment and constant waves of monsters, acknowledging it's different from training. She grips her sword, resolving to manage her strength carefully. Ellie glances over her shoulder, thinking she needs to move more efficiently. She looks at Kay and tells herself she doesn't want to fall behind him. Meanwhile, Kay grips a shadow creature by the neck and brutally crushes it with his bare hand. Ellie Cyan looks at Kay with total shock. She asks him why he is not using a dropper. Kay hesitates, recalling the entry exam, and admits that he doesn't have one. He explains they are too expensive and that he feels fine fighting without one, leaving Ellie staring in disbelief. Gale is flabbergasted, shouting it makes no sense for a pioneer to have never used one. A dropper is an essential tool for pioneers, used to infuse weapons with color energy to fight creatures. To properly hunt these monsters, one must color them using a dropper. The group looks at Kay, standing over the defeated enemies, and they question how he managed to defeat them bare-handed, without the essential tool. Gale's hand trembles as he grips his own weapon, realizing the gap in their abilities. He recalls the humiliation of the exam, realizing he couldn't even scratch someone who wasn't using a dropper. Gale grits his teeth in frustration. He glares at Kay's back, swearing to himself that he will crush Kay with his own hands one day. As they continue deeper into the cave, Red leads the way with a lantern while Gale follows, seething with anger. Red glances back at his squad with a smirk, thinking it is not bad to see two geniuses being motivated by a rookie. He smiles, believing things are only going to get more interesting. He cheerfully urges the group to give it a bit more effort, telling them they are almost there and suggesting they finish quickly to have a party. After the battle against the shadow beasts, the carcasses of the wolf-like creatures lie scattered. Colorist Red calls for a 10-minute break, though he warns the group, Gale, Kay, and Ellie Cyan, that the real mission has not yet begun. Gale sighs, complaining he has used up a significant amount of his color energy. He pulls out a small bottle of glowing green liquid. As Gale drinks, Kay identifies it as personal ink. This is a specially refined alchemical ink, an essential but rare supply for pioneers that restores their color. Because it must be crafted to match the user's unique color, it is insanely expensive. Kay watches with envy as both Gale and Ellie drink their custom inks, wishing he had the funds for such luxuries. Kay quickly dismisses the thought, walking away from the group. He reaches his hand out toward a defeated shadow creature's corpse. A massive swirl of dark energy erupts from its body as Kay activates his ability, absorbing the shadow directly into his hand. The black energy flows into him. Kay clenches his fist, his energy fully restored, and announces his recovery is complete. He turns back to his teammates, who are staring with horror and disbelief. Ellie hesitantly asks if he is sure he is okay. Kay waves off their concern, explaining he has done this a few times. Gale shouts in disbelief that Kay just absorbed a monster without flinching. Before they can continue, Red interrupts, declaring the break is over. The group travels deeper into the canyon until Red announces they have arrived. The team sees a massive, swirling dome of pure black energy blocking their path. Kay stares, muttering that it looks like a black curtain. Red smiles at Kay's stunned expression and reveals that this dark barrier is the specific reason he brought Kay along. To demonstrate, Red summons a ball of red energy and unleashes a powerful beam at the black dome. The attack hits the surface, but instead of breaking through, the energy is instantly swallowed by the darkness. Red explains that if anyone tries to force the barrier open, it absorbs the power and becomes tougher. He notes that this is very similar to K's own ability, which is why he had a hunch that K would be the only one capable of erasing it. Red points toward the dark wall, revealing that the path to the ruins lies inside. He announces that within those ruins hides their true objective, the Stella fragment. K's eyes widen in shock. The other recruits are confused. Gale asks what Stella is, and Ellie admits she has never heard of it. Red assures them it exists and that the Shining City is desperate to find it. He points a finger at K, ordering him to get rid of the curtain. K steps forward toward the towering wall of darkness. As he touches it, his absorption ability activates, and the barrier's black energy begins to flow violently into his hand. A massive vortex forms as the giant dome is funneled into K. Red, Gale, and Ellie watch as the obstacle is devoured. Red watches with an amazed grin, delighted his theory was correct. As the barrier disappears, he tells K his power will be extremely useful. However, K looks unhappy, sweating and trembling as he struggles to contain the massive amount of energy he just absorbed. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently. Gale and Ellie panic as the tremors grow stronger, realizing the loud noise is sure to attract hordes of deadly creatures. The loud rumble caused by K's action echoes through the canyon. Suddenly, a horde of black, wolf-like monsters emerges from the cliffs. The group finds themselves surrounded. Ellie and Gale draw their weapons, while Red laughs that such a large crowd has gathered to welcome them. Red commands the rest of the team to handle the creatures, while K focuses on removing the curtain. With a cold expression, the team leader orders his squad to wipe out every monster. Gale and Ellie leap into action. Gale moves with incredible speed, slicing the shadow creatures with wind-infused attacks. Ellie unleashes her power, summoning massive ice spikes from the ground that impale multiple enemies. As the two recruits clash fiercely, Red observes them. He notes that he was prepared to step in, but there is no need. He effortlessly summons orbs of red energy and fires beams that pierce through the remaining beasts. Red thinks that although they are new recruits, their skill level is high enough. Meanwhile, K continues to absorb the massive barrier, sweating profusely. Red smiles, thinking how nice it is when his subordinates do the hard work. While Red stands guard, K struggles with the volatile energy, kneeling on the ground. He notices the curtain's power feels strangely similar to his own, wondering if it's because they share the same black attribute. He realizes the danger. If he loses focus, the curtain's massive energy will reverse the flow and steal his color instead. K grits his teeth, refusing to be overpowered, and declares that he is the stronger one. With a final effort, the absorption completes. He stands on the path's edge, panting heavily, and confirms he has absorbed everything. He looks down at what was hidden behind the barrier and is shocked to see a massive, pitch-black pit with no visible bottom. He wonders if this terrifying abyss is the entrance to the ruins. Having finished his task, he turns and calls out to the team leader, reporting the curtain has been successfully removed. With the barrier removed, Red praises K for a job well done. He calls out to the rest of the team, announcing the curtain is down and ordering them to finish cleaning up. Suddenly, Red's expression shifts to pure shock as he senses an immediate danger. Moving with blinding speed, he rushes forward and forcibly grabs both Ellie and Gale, pulling them back. An instant later, a massive invisible energy slice tears through the air, carving deep gouges into the ground where they had been standing. The attack is devastating, shredding the remaining shadow monsters. Debris rains down as Red, Ellie, and Gale land safely on a higher slope. Gale stares in horror, realizing he would have been killed instantly without Red's intervention. Red looks grim, sighing that the lack of resistance earlier was because something else was scaring the monsters away. He recalls a report that a dangerous entity was lurking nearby. Through the dust, a silhouette appears, walking toward them, dragging a massive sword. Red remarks that they are out of time to fool around. The attacker steps into the light. It is a man with spiky hair, white on one side and black on the other. Half of his face is consumed by a dark, mask-like growth, and he carries a collection of different weapons on his back. The stranger glares at the pioneers with a terrifying aura. Red stands between his team and the new threat, ordering K and the others to listen carefully. Red hurriedly shoves a lantern into K's hands, giving him a frantic order. He tells K and the others they must enter the ruins immediately and find the Stella fragment. K looks at the team leader with wide, anxious eyes. He asks if Red expects them to go down there by themselves. Red assures him that with their abilities, they are more than capable. However, Red doesn't wait for them to agree. With a sudden burst of force, he shoves K, Ellie, and Gale toward the dark abyss, shouting at them to stop whining and just go. Kay screams out the team leader's name in panic as the three recruits plummet into the deep pit. Left alone, Red stands with his back to the drop, his red aura glowing. The voice of one of the recruits echoes from the deep, asking what they are supposed to do on their own, while the menacing silhouette of the armed stranger looms behind Red. The two powerful figures lock eyes in a tense standoff, and Red knows a difficult battle is about to begin. The scene shifts to the pitch-black bottom of the abyss. Kay lies motionless after the long fall. He groans in pain, clutching his head as he struggles to stand in the suffocating darkness. Remembering the lantern Red gave him, he activates it, wondering if he is inside the ruins. The light flares to life, illuminating the area. Kay's expression instantly shifts to one of absolute terror. He stands frozen in shock, asking himself what this place is. Instead of ancient stone ruins, the lantern illuminates the skeletal remains of massive modern skyscrapers and concrete debris, looking exactly like a destroyed modern city buried underground. Kay stands on a ledge, using his lantern to light the darkness. He is speechless at the sight of the massive ruined city structures buried underground. He marvels that such a place could exist, but complains he can't see clearly. Suddenly, a voice tells him to stop complaining and head toward the light. Kay is relieved to see his teammates, Gale and Ellie, admitting he was terrified of being separated. Gale blames Kay for making them wander, but Ellie sharply retorts that Gale was just as lost. Looking out at the vast, destroyed city, Gale wonders what this place is. He becomes anxious, pointing out the absurdity of trying to find a stela fragment in these endless ruins when they don't even know what it looks like. Kay agrees, admitting that searching blindly would take forever. In his mind, Kay wishes his companion Nero were there. As if in response, a glowing shape appears and he is shocked to see the small black cat, Nero, at his feet. Kay panics, wondering how the cat followed them. Ellie notices the animal and asks if it is a creature. Kay breaks into a cold sweat, thinking he is in trouble now that his secret pet has been discovered. However, he quickly calms down, realizing this might be a good opportunity to prove the cat's worth. He calls out to Gale and Ellie. Holding Nero, Kay smiles confidently and announces he has a way to find the stela fragment easily. The group gathers as Kay explains that the little creature he has been raising will lead them to the objective. Gale shouts angrily, refusing to believe it. However, while Gale argues, Ellie completely ignores him, captivated by the cat's cuteness. Kay decides to demonstrate Nero's abilities. The black cat cries out from Ellie's chest, then leaps out of her arms, startling her. Mid-air, the cat transforms into a swirling vortex of energy. A blinding light erupts, illuminating the dark ruins and leaving the group in shock. The ball of light streaks forward, creating an illuminated path, and the three pioneers follow it. As they walk, Gale expresses his disbelief, questioning how a creature can have such intelligence and a special ability. He demands to know where Kay found it. Kay ignores him and interprets the glowing cat's movements, telling the group that Nero says the stela fragment is right there. Suddenly, the creature notices a trail and shoots away. The trail of light winds through the ruined city, and the group arrives at a massive concrete structure. A dark tunnel entrance lies ahead, and Kay wonders how much deeper they have to go. Gale mocks him, asking if he is scared. Kay shoots back a retort and declares they are going in. They walk through a massive, high-ceilinged corridor with the glowing cat lighting the way. Kay remarks that the facility is much larger than he expected. Suddenly, he notices Nero hovering in front of a large metal door and concludes it must have found something important. The silence is broken by the heavy sound of a massive mechanical foot. Kay freezes as a giant metal leg lands right in front of them. The recruits look up to see a towering, rusted automaton standing before them. Gale is confused, noting it looks different from the biological creatures they are used to fighting. Suddenly, the robot activates a scanning beam, sweeping a sheet of light over Ellie Cyan. The machine processes her data, displaying a hex code for her bright blue color. The scanner then moves to Gale, registering his green color code. The beam finally lands on Kay, who nervously realizes the machine is scanning their colors to identify them. The machine completes the scan, displaying the hex code for absolute pitch black. Upon detecting this, the robot's eye glows brighter. It announces it has detected the color of the Black Witch and, identifying Kay as a threat, declares it will begin elimination. Confused by the title, Kay is hit by the robot's devastating punch before he can react. He is sent skidding backward, groaning in pain but managing to block the direct hit. He glares up at the machine with fury, shouting in frustration. Kay shouts defiantly at the machine, declaring they will not hold back. The giant robot raises its massive fist, threatening to smash them. Kay charges forward, his fist colliding violently with the machine's metal arm. He recoils in pain, wondering why its armor is so tough. Gale watches in confusion as the robot prepares another heavy punch. Ellie steps in, striking the machine with her rapier, but sparks fly as her blade hits the armor. She stares in shock, realizing she hasn't left a single scratch. Ellie panics, wondering if her powers are ineffective against a machine. Meanwhile, Kay analyzes the opponent, noticing the glowing core in its chest. He sees liquid swirling inside and identifies it as the weak point. Kay dashes forward, throwing a sharp left hook. Suddenly, the robot reacts with unexpected speed, swinging its arm like a club. Kay barely manages to evade the heavy blow. He retreats, frustrated that his normal attacks are having no effect. A realization hits him. He remembers the time his body was coated in black energy and decides to use that power. Knowing a full transformation consumes too much color, he compromises by concentrating all his energy solely into his right fist, coating it in a dense layer of black aura. With his preparation complete, Kay leaps into the air and swings his enhanced fist with everything he has. The blow lands perfectly, piercing straight through the robot's chest and shattering its core. The force of the punch completely destroys the machine's upper body. The robot's head flies off, and the light in its eye fades. Kay stands amidst the wreckage, letting out a sigh of relief as Gale and Ellie watch in silence. Amidst the debris, Kay notices a round object and picks up the robot's core, thinking Mari would be happy with it as a gift. Suddenly, Gale yells at Kay, demanding to know what that power was. He and Ellie corner Kay, bombarding him with questions. Kay nervously deflects their questions by claiming the technique drains his color severely. As he speaks, the large metal door behind them begins to slide open, revealing a pitch-black void. Suddenly, Nero flies out of the darkness, crying out in panic. The cat hovers near Kay, shaking in fear. Kay looks toward the dark doorway, sensing something strange. Despite the cat's warning, he steps closer, admitting he can't see anything inside. As his fingertips make contact, the black surface ripples like water. Suddenly, the darkness erupts outward. Massive tendrils of shadow surge from the doorway, enveloping the group. Gale and Ellie scream as they are dragged toward the entrance. Helpless against the force, all three are sucked into the black void. The group falls through an endless black space, landing in a new, pitch-black environment. Gale groans in pain, complaining about the fall and the darkness. He lifts his hands to check on himself, then pauses, noticing something strange. He looks down at his chest and grabs his jacket in pure shock, realizing his color, the green that defines his power, has completely vanished, leaving him in black and white. Kay and Ellie stand beside him, equally horrified. The entire world around them, including their bodies, has lost all saturation. They stand in this monochrome reality, confused and terrified, wondering what has happened to them. Away from the underground ruins, a small scorpion scurries across the wasteland with the radiant, shining city in the background. Somewhere in the city stands the Eastern Government Office. Inside, a large official known as the Chief yells in anger, demanding to know if he has been located. A nervous subordinate reports that the individual is on an exploration mission with colorist Red, adding that the boy specifically asked them not to meddle. The chief is furious, shouting about Black. He cannot believe Red would bring someone with such a dangerous color onto the field. He rants that even though Red is a hero, this has crossed a line. The chief explains that a recent creature appearance has the ruling council in an uproar, terrified that the catastrophic Black Wave has begun. He complains he will be the one to take the blame. As he speaks, a young woman with pink and yellow hair smiles teasingly, noting that the chief is very angry again. The woman, Camellia, the leader of the Dawn Pioneering Corps, advises the chief to calm down before he ends up in the hospital. She explains that she understands his concern, but that he should not get ahead of himself. She asks if he really believes Red would act without thinking. She argues that Red is a reliable safeguard, perfect for watching over the boy. Camellia suggests that taking a high-risk individual might yield unexpected positive results. She sips her tea, stating that what they need now is trust, not worry. However, Camellia grimaces at the bitter tea. The chief ignores her and dumps a massive amount of sugar into the pot, while she wonders how anyone can consume something so sweet. The chief snaps at her to focus. Camelia's expression turns serious. She acknowledges the chief is wary of black, because it is associated with the legendary Black Witch. She narrates that black symbolizes death and fear, referencing a historical catastrophe caused by the witch known as the First Black Wave. She explains that humanity nearly perished then, as the world was shrouded in dark mist and creatures appeared, creating the Black Lands. Camellia predicts another wave is inevitable and that their exploration is ultimately about survival. She mentions the recent anomalies and the appearance of a Black Wielder. With a determined look, she tells the chief they must use every ounce of power available, even black, and urges him to persuade the council. The chief looks resigned, admitting it's not as easy as it sounds. However, he looks at a dossier containing a photograph of Kay and promises to try his best. Staring at the image, the chief muses that perhaps the city's fate might revolve around this one boy. Meanwhile, the three pioneers stand in an endless, pitch-black void, their bodies glowing as white outlines. They are confused about where they are. Gale turns to Kay in a panic, pointing and screaming that their colors have disappeared, demanding to know why Kay still has his. Kay, bored, replies he has no idea, suggesting it might be because his color is black, matching the darkness. Suddenly, Gale hunches over, exhausted, and Ellie Cyan clutches her head, feeling weak. Kay watches, confused, wondering why he is fine. He realizes it might be because he spent his life as a colorless person, so this is nothing new. Gale mentions a bizarre sensation inside his body. He squints and sees a faint, glowing light pulsating within him, like a core. Suddenly, creepy whispering sounds rain down on them. They look around in alarm. Terrified, Gale shouts into the darkness, demanding whoever is whispering show themselves. Kay listens, wondering if it's the same voice that usually speaks to him, but realizes it's something different. Just then, a dark, ghostly silhouette of a woman with long hair emerges from the shadows. Kay senses the presence and turns sharply. Gale and Ellie freeze in shock, stammering in fear, unable to identify if the ghostly form is a creature. They are terrified because it appeared instantly without warning. The mysterious shadow figure raises a hand and points a finger at Kay's chest. Kay freezes, his eyes widening as he realizes he is being singled out. His mind is violently pulled into a chaotic vision of a swirling vortex of energy consuming a city. The scene shifts to a terrifying, blood-red nightmare of a world in ruins, overrun by massive beasts. A giant eye opens in the sky above a horde of shadow creatures, while a terrifying, multi-eyed beast glares from the crowd. The vision cuts to the face of the mysterious woman with long hair, staring at him with one glowing eye. Kay finds himself standing before a massive, overwhelming blue energy, unsure if he is seeing a memory or reality. His confusion deepens, and he questions his own identity. Deep in his subconscious, a voice from a bright light states that he needs a name. A blurry, smiling figure from his past gives him the name Kay, encouraging him to find his own light and color. The vision ends abruptly, and Kay snaps back to the present with a loud gasp. He looks terrified, sweating as the shock of the memory hits him. He stumbles in the void, clutching his head and panting, cursing why such unpleasant scenes are forcing their way into his mind. Kay clutches his head, trying to process the chaotic vision. He frantically tries to hold on to the fading memory, telling himself there must be an answer. Suddenly, the name Rumiel surfaces from his mind. He is confused, wondering who that is. His thoughts are interrupted by Gale, who has lost his composure. The swordsman screams into the darkness, challenging invisible enemies and swinging his sword wildly, hallucinating a battle. Kay turns to see Gale swinging his weapon dangerously close to a cowering Ellie Cyan. Gale cries out, completely detached from reality. Ellie trembles, begging him to stop. Ignoring her pleas, Gale continues his rampage, shouting for everyone to die. His eyes are blackened and bleeding, showing the void has driven him mad. Meanwhile, Ellie Cyan is trapped in her own nightmare. Tears of black liquid stream down her face as she clutches her head, apologizing to her sister, reliving a traumatic memory. Kay watches with concern, realizing his teammates are deteriorating. He understands the creature and this space are corrupting them, and decides they need to escape immediately. Suddenly, a familiar Q sound echoes. Kay looks up to see a glowing white shape flying toward him. He smiles in relief, realizing Nero is safe. He greets the cat, asking if he is okay. Nero flies around frantically, gesturing toward the distance. Kay understands Nero is telling him something is over there. The cat flies off, leaving a trail of light. Kay decides to follow the path. However, Kay pauses and looks back at his teammates. Gale is still swinging his sword violently over the traumatized Ellie. Kay realizes he cannot just leave them. He turns to Nero and asks if the cat can use his abilities to help. A massive surge of purification light erupts from the cat, enveloping Gale and Ellie. Inside the light, the dark corruption begins to evaporate. Ellie and Gale stop screaming as the black influence dissipates. Kay watches with satisfaction, noting the light is working. With his teammates protected, Kay tells them to stay there. He turns away, determined to scout the path ahead alone. Kay walks through the pitch-black void, following Nero's light trail. He gets frustrated, complaining that there is still nothing to be seen. As he turns his head, the unsettling whispering sounds return. A mysterious voice echoes, telling him that no color can touch you. Kay looks annoyed, thinking that hearing nothing but riddles is infuriating. Suddenly, a bright star-like light shines in the distance. Kay's expression shifts to excitement, and he begins to run toward the illumination. As he gets closer, his face lights up with amazement. He stands before a massive, glowing structure shaped like a four-pointed star on a stone monolith, realizing he has found his objective. Kay identifies the object as the Stella fragment, which radiates a powerful holy light. He notes that its glow and shape are different from what he's seen, wondering if every fragment is unique. Deciding not to waste time, he climbs the rocky mound to recover the item and escape the unpleasant dimension. He reaches his hand toward the glowing core. The light swirls violently. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy flows from the fragment into his hand as his absorption ability triggers automatically. Kay is shocked, his body glowing with the absorbed energy. He panics, wondering why his ability activated by itself again. He hopes that since it was only for a moment, it won't be a problem. The dark influence that trapped the group begins to fade. Kay looks up, relieved, as the oppressive atmosphere dissipates. The pitch-black void vanishes, revealing they are in a massive, gray stone chamber. Kay stands alone in the center, looking at the glowing energy in his hands, confirming the black space is gone. He reflects on the nature of the Black Lands, noting this dangerous territory is always full of surprises. Gale and Ellie Cyan regain their senses and stare at Kay in disbelief. Kay asks if they are okay, but Gale points an accusing finger at him, while Ellie asks in shock how he remained fine. Kay replies he doesn't know. He shifts their attention to the glowing object in his hand, announcing they have found their target. They identify the object swirling with rainbow light as the Stella fragment. The team gathers around to inspect it. Gale is skeptical that such a tiny object is what Team Leader Red was talking about. Ellie is amazed that something so small can carry so many colors. Beside them, Nero floats, staring intently at the glowing orb. Kay confirms there are no negative effects on his body. However, Nero drifts closer, his eyes locked onto the shiny energy. Suddenly, the cat opens its mouth wide, looming over the artifact. Before anyone can react, Nero swallows the Stella fragment whole. Kay's face twists into absolute horror and shock. Gale and Ellie are equally terrified, screaming at the cat in panic, demanding to know what he is doing. Gale shouts at the floating cat, scolding Nero and telling him the fragment is not food. Losing his temper, Gale grabs and violently shakes him, screaming at Nero to spit it out. Kay frantically tries to stop him, yelling at Gale to get his hands off the cat. Suddenly, loud cracks spread across the walls and ceiling. Gale complains that after all their effort, this is how it ends. The entire structure begins to crumble as the three pioneers stand in the center. Realizing the danger, Gale yells for everyone to run. Kay, clutching Nero, runs alongside Ellie Cyan and Gale as the room collapses behind them. They sprint desperately toward the exit, narrowly escaping into the hallway. The scene shifts to a different location. A group of pioneers stands before a massive dead monster. Arancia, the woman with orange hair, inspects a deep slash mark in the ground. She kneels to examine the traces, looking concerned. A blue-haired man asks if she has found something. Arancia confirms with a grim expression that the battle-crazed bastard has returned. She explains the traces belong to a humanoid creature known as the Sword Demon, one of the witch's black hands. She says every time he shows up, he causes trouble, and wonders if the recent surge in monster activity is related to his appearance. The blue-haired man asks if they should continue, but Arancia decides to abort the mission. She states they have secured enough resources and refuses to risk the probationers under her care. Suddenly, Arancia senses a massive energy surge. A gigantic red fire explosion erupts from a nearby mountain. Arancia recognizes the specific fire color, realizing it belongs to Team Leader Red. She stares in shock, realizing that if Red is fighting with that much power, the Sword Demon must be there with him. Invisible energy slashes tear through the air toward the pioneers. Arancia reacts instantly, screaming at her subordinates to get out of the way as a massive cutting wave approaches. As her team scrambles, Arancia draws a massive, mechanical hammer glowing with orange heat. Her expression turns fierce, her eyes glowing with power as she prepares to intercept the attack. With a powerful shout, she leaps and swings her hammer. The impact creates a massive orange energy explosion that collides with the incoming black slash, neutralizing the threat. Landing safely, Arancia declares the expedition is officially over and orders everyone to return to the outpost. She instructs her blue-haired deputy to lead the retreat while she goes to rendezvous with Team Leader Red. Arancia then launches herself toward the distant mountain peak. The scene shifts to the mountain, where a cataclysmic battle is taking place. Red and black energies collide with explosive force. Colorless Red and the Sword Demon move at blinding speeds, their blades clashing repeatedly. The sword demon grabs a heavy spear-like weapon of darkness, his single glowing white eye glaring at Red. With a roar, the demon hurls a spiraling vortex of dark energy toward the pioneer. Red stands his ground, blocking the heavy impact. With a skillful twist, he deflects the dark spear. Undeterred, the sword demon charges again, swinging a blade of shadows. Red parries, focusing on defense against the relentless assault. Suddenly, the sword demon pauses as he notices a buildup of heat. A massive geyser of red fire erupts from the ground, engulfing the area. The sword demon leaps backward just in time, escaping the inferno. The sword demon stares through the flames, his glowing eye fixed on his opponent. Suddenly, a voice shouts from above, complimenting Red on his lure attack. Arancia descends rapidly, wielding her massive hammer, and yells a challenge to the demon, daring him to try and dodge. With a wild smile, she taunts the enemy. She swings her hammer down with immense force, creating a shockwave of orange energy. The demon is violently crushed into the ground, unable to evade the surprise attack. Arancia lands gracefully as the debris settles. Colorist Red looks at her with a calm smile and remarks that she is late. Arancia jokes that she almost died, but Red dismisses it. She notes that although she landed a clean hit, it wasn't enough to finish the fight. Sure enough, the sword demon's silhouette emerges from the dust. The creature glares at the two pioneers with intense hostility, unharmed. Red remains confident, telling Arancia that dealing with this enemy will be easier now that she is using her color. Arancia, however, warns him not to fight half-heartedly. She admits she is relieved she arrived before things got too serious, explaining that none of the other colorists want to see Red fight at his full strength, implying his true power is terrifying. Red complains about her nagging. Ignoring him, Arancia activates her power, and glowing orange energy rings form beneath her feet. She grips her hammer tightly, surrounded by an aura of light, and declares they will take down another of the witch's black hands. Across from them, the sword demon stands silently, his face bulging with fury. While colorist Red and Arancia prepare to engage the sword demon, a strained voice echoes from the cliff edge. Red's eyes widen in surprise, and even the sword demon looks confused, pausing to look toward the sound. The sword demon stands on the rocky ledge, watching as voices argue below. Finally, Gale, Kay, with Nero, and Ellie Cyan climb over the ledge. Gale collapses, panting, declaring he never wants to go back to the underground ruins. However, Kay suddenly freezes, noticing a terrifying presence. He looks up to see the sword demon glaring directly at him. Behind the monster, he sees Red and Arancia glowing with energy, realizing they have walked into a battle. Arancia and Red look panicked, cursing the horrible timing, and rush forward to intercept the monster. Red screams at the trio to dodge. The sword demon ignores the powerful colorists and turns his attention to the weak prey. With terrifying speed, the monster charges directly at Kay, Gale, and Ellie. Acting on instinct, Gale grips his sword, and Ellie quickly draws her weapon. Despite their exhaustion, the two charge forward to protect themselves. The sword demon swings his massive black blade with overwhelming force. In a single strike, he shatters the weapons of both Gale and Ellie. Ellie and Gale stare in horror. Gale cannot process how his hardened metal weapon was destroyed. Paralyzed by fear, he realizes the power gap is insurmountable and thinks he is going to die. The sword demon swings his massive blade downward. A slash of white energy cuts through the air. In a desperate attempt to save his teammates, Kay throws himself in the path of the attack, shielding Gale and Ellie. The strike cleanly chops off his left hand. Kay grits his teeth in agony. Ellie screams his name in terror, and Gale shouts in shock as the sword demon looms over them. Kay falls backward, bleeding heavily. The sword demon lunges forward, delivering a knee strike to Gale and grabbing Ellie by the throat. He holds her hostage, using her as a human shield. Colorist Red and Arancia arrive but freeze. Unable to attack without killing Ellie, the sword demon commands them to stop, ordering them to clear a path and not pursue him. He demands they hand over the key, confusing the colorists. He warns that the girl is in his hands and threatens to kill Ellie if they do not listen. Red narrows his eyes, pondering the situation. Arancia shouts back in confusion, asking what key he is talking about. She shakes with fury, calling him a bastard, while Red clenches his jaw, realizing the situation is complicated. Meanwhile, Kay lies face down, his severed arm bleeding. Nero hovers above him, crying out. Suddenly, Kay's remaining hand twitches. The sword demon continues to pressure Ellie, demanding a decision. However, a dark presence rises from the ground. Kay slowly begins to stand, his silhouette looming. The sword demon senses the intense aura and turns his head, confused. He stammers, unable to understand what he is seeing, and asks what Kay is. Kay stands fully upright, his face obscured by shadow. Massive amounts of black energy swirl around his body. The darkness concentrates around his severed wrist, and his arm rapidly regenerates, formed entirely from the black energy. The sword demon stares in disbelief, unable to comprehend how his opponent is standing again after such a grievous wound. He turns, sensing a terrifying pressure, and questions why a human possesses the color black. A silhouette of K rises, surrounded by swirling dark energy. The darkness concentrates at his severed wrist, forming a new hand out of pure shadow, and K pulls the energy together, fully regenerating his limb. The sword demon is shaken by this impossible feat. Suddenly, a burst of dark force sends him flying backward. Arancia and Colorless Red are stunned. The sword demon gasps, clutching his throat as an invisible force strangles him. K walks forward, lifting the massive monster into the air by the neck. Seeing the danger, Arancia ushers Ellie Cayenne and the others to safety. Colorless Red watches with a grim expression, fearing the volatile black power has consumed K's mind. The sword demon struggles as K's shadowy form looms over him, wondering if the boy has turned into a monster like the Black Hand. The darkness tightens its grip, crushing his armor and body. In pain, the sword demon realizes K is stealing his very existence. He recognizes this terrifying sensation is not a hallucination. Staring into K's glowing eye, the demon connects this power to a figure from the past, realizing it feels just like her. In his final moments of realization, the demon understands K is the person they have been looking for, identifying him as the key. Terrifying jaws of darkness emerge from K's body, surrounding the sword demon and attempting to devour him. The creature notices the sharp teeth closing in and quickly draws his weapon. Unleashing a flurry of slashes, the sword demon cuts through the shadow beasts to create an opening. Realizing he cannot win in his current state, the demon decides he must close the distance and charges at the boy. He aims a vicious strike at K's limbs, intending to disable him, but a loud clash rings out as the attack is intercepted. The sword demon's eyes widen in shock as he realizes his blade has been stopped dead. K stands unmoving, shrouded in darkness, having blocked the attack with his transformed arm. The demon questions why his attack isn't working. K's hand, coated in black energy, firmly grabs the demon's sword blade. Sensing danger from the encroaching jaws, the sword demon leaps backward, narrowly escaping the biting shadows. He lands safely, but more shadows instantly emerge around him. Sweating nervously, the sword demon admits he did not think K's power would be to this extent. Suddenly, his attention is drawn elsewhere as he realizes another presence is approaching. Arancia charges into the fray with a furious expression, shouting that she has had enough. She swings her massive mechanical hammer with incredible force, and the sword demon is forced to block with his sword. Arancia screams at him, asking if he wants to die as she drives the hammer down. The impact is devastating, shattering the blade. The sword demon groans in agony as he struggles against the giant hammer. Arancia glares down, determined to crush him. However, the monster makes a calculated decision. Realizing he has found the key, he decides to retreat rather than fight a losing battle. With a sudden burst of speed, the sword demon flees, leaving Arancia surprised by his cowardice. She immediately flies into a rage, screaming at him for running away after causing so much destruction. Seeing the direction he is heading, she panics and shouts to her partner, warning they must stop him before he enters the depths. The fleeing sword demon pauses, confused as a voice calls out. Colorless Red steps into his path, his eyes glowing red as he asks the monster where he thinks he is going. Red grips his sword, and the blade ignites with crimson light as he imbues it with his color. Unleashing his ultimate technique, Chroma, Annihilation Fire, he swings his blade downward. The attack is so fast that it cleanly chops off the sword demon's left arm and slices a massive fissure into the ground behind him. The severed limb falls as the sword demon clutches his bleeding shoulder in shock. He stares at the wound, realizing with horror that this power is Chroma. As the monster curses, Colorless Red charges for another attack. He reminds the creature he promised a proper fight and declares with a furious expression that he will send the demon to hell, just like his buddies. The battle concludes as Colorless Red unleashes a barrage of red energy slashes. The one-armed sword demon desperately blocks the attacks with his remaining sword. Realizing he cannot win, the demon vows that next time will be different and swears he will capture the key. With blood streaming from his face, he retreats into the shadows, leaps away with powerful force, and vanishes. Red stands at the edge of the cliff, staring into the abyss where the monster disappeared. Arancia runs up, eager to continue the chase, but Red stops her, warning it is too dangerous. Arancia stomps in frustration, complaining they almost had him, but Red explains they cannot enter the depths unprepared. Red looks grim, Admitting that even with their strength, this is their limit, he stares at the ominous darkness, frustrated that the Blacklands themselves act as a shield. The team regroups and Arancia apologizes to the captain for being a burden. Red smiles at her, Ellie, Tyann, and Gale, reassuring them he is glad they are safe. However, his expression turns serious as he looks past them, asking what they should do about that guy. Red looks at Kay, who stands motionless, his entire body shrouded in menacing black shadows. He wonders if the boy is even conscious. Red is shocked to see the darkness of the ground flowing into him. He thinks that while he expected Kay's power to be dangerous, he never imagined it would be to this extent, realizing Kay appears to be absorbing the Blacklands. As the chaotic battle ends, the terrifying black aura surrounding Kay begins to fade. The team watches, wondering if he has regained his senses. Arancia looks anxious, but Colorless Red signals for silence, observing closely. Kay stands unsteadily, his eyes rolling back as the dark energy completely dissipates. Exhausted, he collapses face forward. The group stands over his unconscious body, staring in silence. Looking at the boy who wielded such monstrous power, they are left questioning his true identity. Elsewhere, the sword demon stumbles through the darkness, bleeding heavily. He groans in pain, clutching his wound. However, dark energy swirls around his shoulder, and his severed arm regenerates. Suddenly, a mocking voice echoes, laughing at his battered state and asking if he got beaten up. The voice teases that it is typical of him to poke around where he shouldn't. The sword demon glares into the shadows. Two mysterious girls with green and black hair emerge, and the sword demon identifies them as Viper. Viper, appearing as multiple figures, surrounds the injured sword demon. They chatter excitedly, teasing him about his condition and demanding to know who could have beaten someone of his caliber. One of the Viper twins inspects the ground, noticing traces of scorching heat and pure red energy. She looks up with a cunning grin, realizing the demon fought Colorless Red. She mocks him, laughing that it is a miracle he survived a fight against such a monster. The sword demon grunts in annoyance as Viper continues to taunt him. He snaps at her, telling her to shut up and get lost. Unfazed, Viper comments on Colorless Red's power, noting that while the human is incredibly strong, his fighting style involves burning his own life force, predicting he will eventually self-destruct. Viper then shifts her tone to something more serious. She chases after the demon, pointing out that he ignored her earlier question. She asks if he noticed that the Black Witch's curtain, the massive barrier blocking the ruins, has been opened. She grins maliciously, asking if he saw who did it and how it was opened. The sword demon remains silent, causing Viper to sigh and press him further. Internally, the sword demon calls her an idiot, thinking there is no way he would share such vital information. He realizes that if the identity of the key, K, becomes known, it will be a loss for him. His eyes glow with possessiveness as he vows to be the one to claim the boy. Seeing his refusal to speak, Viper looks disappointed, complaining that he is no fun. She stares at his retreating back, sensing his hesitation. The two Viper twins giggle, mocking the demon for acting so suspicious. They tell him his silence only makes it obvious he is hiding something, calling him a fool. However, the twins quickly lose interest. The dominant twin declares it doesn't matter because they will find out on their own. Viper's eye glows green as she deduces that the curtain's opening is related to the humans from the city. Standing before a colossal tentacled silhouette, Viper suggests that since they have a lead, it is time to make some waves. The shining city stands as a beacon of safety in a dark world. In a medical room, Kay lies unconscious, his hair now white again. His friend Mari sits by his side, while colorists Red, Gale, and Ellie Cyan watch over him. The three elite pioneers watch the sleeping boy with solemn expressions. Colorist Red reflects on the chaos in the Blacklands, feeling ashamed. He promised no one would get seriously hurt, but the image of the sword demon and Kay's severed hand proves he failed. Red silently takes full responsibility for the tragic outcome of the mission. Looking at a broken pocket watch, he thinks to himself that he hasn't changed at all. He feels bitter, thinking he is hardly worthy of being called a hero. Nearby, Ellie and Gale discuss the mission. Ellie calls their survival a miracle, crediting the leadership of Captains Red and Arancia. Red listens in silence, his expression weary and somber. Ellie declares with determination she will become stronger, so she is never a burden to Kay again. Red calmly tells her there is no need to be so impatient. Mari is startled and confused. She recalls her shock when the famous colorists first arrived at her workshop, claiming to be Kay's colleagues. She realizes that despite her initial fear for Kay, his new teammates seem like decent people. She looks at Kay's peaceful face, wishing he would wake up soon. A nurse had told her Kay had no physical issues and would likely wake up soon. Red breaks the silence, asking if her name is Mari and confirming she is Kay's friend. Mari confirms, and Red reassures her about Kay's physical health. His expression turns serious as he says he needs to ask her something. Red asks Mari if she knows the location of a small creature named Nero. As he speaks, a black shape emerges from behind Kay. Gale is caught off guard, his eyes widening in shock. Gale points at the bed, shouting that the creature has finally appeared. Nero, the small black cat, sits on Kay's pillow as Gale yells at him for hiding. Gale reports to Red that this is the creature that swallowed the Stella fragment during their mission. He complains that the cat's disappearance made it difficult to explain things to their superiors, while Red looks puzzled. Losing his patience, Gale lunges for the bed, ordering the cat to come to him. Nero strikes Gale in the face and flies away, leaving the swordsman fuming. The small cat flies into Mari's protective embrace. Mari is overjoyed, saying she suspected he was hiding in Kay's shadow all along. She hugs the cat, relieved he is safe. Nearby, Red watches with intense concentration. Staring at Nero, Red feels an overwhelming sense of familiarity, though he cannot place why. He wonders if he is just imagining things, his eyes fixed on the creature. Suddenly, Nero's mouth glows with a multicolored light. To Mari's shock, the cat spits out a glowing orb. Red is relieved, admitting he was worried about how to get it out of the cat. The room is illuminated by the item's rainbow light. Red reaches out his hand toward the floating Stella fragment. He holds the glowing piece of energy, satisfied they have finally secured another fragment. His expression turns somber, however, as he reflects on the heavy price paid for this one object. While unconscious, Kay relives the battle, remembering how Ellie and Gale could not stop the monstrous sword demon. Desperate to save his friends, Kay recalls feeling he had to step in, regardless of the risk. Fear and panic fill his mind as the nightmare peaks. With a loud scream, Kay bolts upright in bed, finally awake. Panting and covered in sweat, he looks around in confusion, shocked to see Captain Red holding the Stella fragment, with Ellie and Gale nearby. Kay tries to process his surroundings, wondering where he is and what happened to the enemy. Looking down at his hands, terror washes over him as he realizes his black color is gone, leaving him colorless again. He panics, desperately trying to think of an excuse to hide his true nature from the elite warriors. Memories of being rejected for having no color flash through his mind, and he fears being thrown out of the pioneers again. Seeing his distress, Red calmly tells Kay to lift his head, asking why he looks so guilty, and assuring him that his appearance does not matter. Red explains that what matters is how well they handled their first mission, admitting he never expected the new recruits to succeed in finding the fragment. With a welcoming smile, the captain warns Kay he plans to train him hard from now on, officially welcoming him to the Red Team. Kay stares in disbelief, speechless, realizing he has finally been accepted. A relieved smile forms on his face as his fear of rejection disappears. Filled with joy and determination, Kay responds with a bright smile, ready for the challenges ahead. Colorist Red prepares to leave, telling the recruits to finish talking among themselves and then dismiss. Holding the Stella fragment, Red says he must meet Lord Luminous. He tells the group to rest at the facility until they receive further instructions. Red leaves, and Kay, Mari, Ellie, and Gale are left alone in the medical bay. Breaking the silence, Ellie asks Kay if he remembers anything that happened after he lost consciousness during the battle. Kay looks nervous, saying that while Captain Red told them to keep it quiet, he honestly does not remember that time well. Ellie sighs and lets the matter go, acknowledging he probably has secrets, just like everyone else. Kay insists he is telling the truth about his memory but changes the topic, asking how to return to his black color state. Mari laughs cheerfully, telling him not to worry. She proudly says she has prepared something just for this situation. She rummages through her bags as the others watch with curious expressions. Triumphantly, Mari pulls out a small bottle of dark liquid, announcing it is black ink. Mari casually explains she took the bottle from a disposal site. Ellie is horrified, staring in disbelief at the dangerous substance. Ellie exclaims it is just toxic waste, not ink, and questions why Mari has something so dangerous. Kay, however, is delighted, calling it his personal ink. He ignores Ellie's warning that the liquid is basically poison. Without hesitation, Kay opens the bottle and drinks the black sludge. Mari smiles knowingly, while Ellie is frozen in shock. After finishing, Kay sighs with satisfaction, saying he feels alive again as a dark mist swirls around him. The dark energy surges, and Kay's hair turns jet black. He clenches his fists and announces his recovery is complete as Mari claps happily. Mari tells Kay that was not enough ink to fully restore his energy. She suggests they go to her studio for more, and Kay happily agrees. Gale, watching with a dark expression, interrupts their meaningless talk and announces he is leaving. Before leaving, Gale stops and stares at Kay with deep suspicion and resentment. His gaze falls on Kay's arm, which has completely healed after being severed in the fight. Gale thinks that regeneration is a high-level ability only for specialized colorists. He is confused how Kay can do something so impossible. He demands to know why Kay put himself in danger during the battle. Gale remembers the moment Kay jumped in front of the sword demon to shield them. Gale recalls his shock as he watched Kay take a devastating blow meant for them. Kay looks unsure how to respond to Gale's aggressive tone. He explains that he felt they were in danger and thought his ability might stop the attack. He adds that he failed, which almost made things worse. Kay's humble explanation only makes Gale angrier, and he clenches his teeth. In a rage, Gale violently grabs Kay by the collar. He shouts at Kay, demanding to know who asked for his help. His face twisted in anger, Gale tells Kay he does not like him. Kay is stunned and confused, trying to understand why Gale is so upset. Mari quickly steps in, yelling at Gale and demanding to know why he is acting so crazy. Gale falls silent, his expression shadowed as he processes his complicated emotions. After a moment of tension, he lets go of Kay's collar. Without a word, Gale turns and walks out. Mari is furious, but Ellie tells her not to worry, explaining that Gale is always difficult. Ellie also decides to leave. Kay thanks her, and she suggests they postpone their match. Ellie leaves, and Kay and Mari are left alone with Nero. Kay suggests they head back to Mari's workshop, and she happily agrees. Before they leave, Kay remembers he has something special to show her. Mari looks at him curiously. He explains it is something he got after defeating an opponent during the mission, remembering the giant mechanical automaton. Kay retrieves a bag from a shelf, telling Mari he thinks she will like what is inside. He proudly presents the mechanical object to her, and Mari stares in surprise. Her eyes sparkle with excitement as she realizes the value of the gift. The object is the glowing core of the robot Kay destroyed in the ruins. In a majestic hall filled with shimmering light, colorist Red walks alone down a silent corridor. He maintains a serious expression as he nears his destination. Red enters a large chamber flooded with an intense golden light. At the end of a long staircase, a figure bathed in rainbow light waits for him. Red announces his presence as he approaches. A woman with long, pale hair in an elegant white dress welcomes him, saying she has been expecting him. Standing before her, Red says he has good news for the first time in a while. He reports that just as she predicted, they have found a way to open the Black Witch's curtain. The woman, Lord Luminous, turns to look at him. At the workshop, Mari is absorbed in the mechanical core Kay gave her. She excitedly disassembles it, marveling that it matches ancient technology from her books. She notes that while it uses ink for fuel like their current machines, its efficiency is on a much higher level. Mari is fascinated that such technology kept the ruins golem moving with only faded ink. In contrast, Kay sits bored and unimpressed, with Nero beside him. Kay skeptically asks if the core is that special, as it looks like any other. Mari shouts back that it is special. She explains finding such a relic is extremely rare, something even famous pioneering core might only find once a year. She daydreams about that era of lost technology, wishing she could experience it. Kay interrupts, practically asking if she should sell the valuable relic. Mari reacts angrily, waving a wrench and calling him an amateur for thinking a true technician would choose money over studying such a treasure. She confidently declares that ideas are already flooding her mind and promises to use this knowledge to create the best gear for him. Kay smiles, thinking her happiness makes it all worth it. As he and Nero prepare to leave, telling Mari he will be back later, she suddenly calls for him to wait. Mari informs him that she just remembered someone was there looking for him, leaving Kay confused. Mari explains she was in the Shadow District gathering ink when strangers approached her. At first, she thought they were thugs and drew her buzzsaw weapon. However, she was surprised they already knew who they were. The leader, a man in a top hat, unsettlingly asked if she was Kay's friend, explaining they wanted to meet the wielder of black. Back in the present, Mari admits the encounter felt like bad news, so she ran. Kay looks concerned and scolds her for going into that district alone. Mari replies that the errand was urgent and advises Kay to avoid any weird people. Kay agrees and leaves the workshop. As he walks away, Kay finds the situation unsettling, but reasons they will find him directly if they have business. He walks through the industrial streets, feeling exhausted and deciding he should hurry home to rest. Suddenly, his eyes narrow as he notices something strange. He sees a group of people in an alley and wonders if the number of vagrants has increased. Looking at the destitute people, he questions if something like a gang war broke out in the underground to force them up this far. Suddenly, Nero pops his head out of Kay's hood, making noise to get his attention. The cat urgently points his paw toward a dark, narrow alleyway. Kay hesitates, knowing it's dangerous, but Nero's persistence convinces him to go check it out. Kay sheepishly apologizes to the cat, acknowledging that Nero's senses have always been accurate. He decides to test a new technique, concentrating the dark, black energy into his eyes. His vision shifts, allowing him to see invisible things. He successfully activates inverted vision, his left eye glowing with an ominous white light. The technique works instantly. In the pitch-black alley, a radiant figure glowing with rainbow-colored light becomes visible. Kay is startled, realizing someone was standing there in silence. The figure is revealed to be a woman with pale hair and an elegant dress, Lord Luminous. He senses her gaze and calls out, but she turns and steps into a portal of light. Kay desperately calls for her to wait. His expression hardens, wondering if this was the person looking for him. He can't let a potential threat escape, so he resolves to catch her and find out her identity, rushing into the light. As he crosses the threshold, his face twists in amazement. He finds himself in a surreal, ethereal world filled with floating lights and massive pillars. He looks around in confusion, unable to process the sudden shift. Panic sets in as he questions reality, noting he was just in a dirty alley. He turns and watches in shock as the dark entrance he came through distorts and vanishes, trapping him. The mysterious woman turns to Kay, remarking that he is as interesting as she expected. She admits she didn't intend to reveal herself so soon, but tells Kay he can be proud of finding her first. Kay, taken aback, stammers and asks who she is. The woman gently introduces herself as Celestia and greets him as the Child of Black. She stands before him, radiating an intense, holy aura. Kay stares in disbelief, seeing she is glowing with every color at once. He breaks into a cold sweat, thinking the only person capable of this is the legendary leader of the Shining City. Kay realizes she is the current Lord Luminous and is terrified, wondering why she would personally come to the Shadow District to watch him. As he questions her motives, the intense light triggers a reaction, and dark static fills his mind. Kay's vision is overtaken by chaotic voices, and panic sets in. The ominous voices that plague him return with full force, screaming and expressing a desperate hunger for her light. The voices command him repeatedly to reach out and take the light. Kay's eyes go pitch black as the dark influence overpowers his mind, commanding him to devour that light right now. Celestia curiously notices the sudden shift in Kay's demeanor, observing that his black energy has suddenly encroached on him. Kay, struggling to stay conscious, mumbles in confusion, insisting he didn't do anything. Celestia remains calm, finding it fascinating. She remarks that it is incredible he hasn't died despite being so darkly encroached. She compares his aura to the Black Witch, Nyx, and observes that he isn't turning into a monster, speculating he must have some unknown connection to the witch. Celestia reveals that while some leaders wanted to dispose of him for the danger he poses, she disagrees. Her eyes glow as she states that she does not wish to do that. She explains that seeing him endure the corruption proves he has potential. She declares his ability is too valuable to waste, and to protect the city, they must use the power of Black, accepting that high risks bring high rewards. Deciding it is time for a proper conversation, Celestia grips her cane and unleashes a massive surge of brilliant, purifying light to suppress the darkness around Kay. The purifying light washes over Kay, and the dark influence vanishes instantly. He pants heavily, clutching his head and realizing the voice he heard during the corruption was the clearest one yet. Celestia asks if he perhaps heard the voice of the Black Witch. Kay looks unsure, admitting he doesn't know. Celestia laughs gently, telling him not to be tense. She explains she simply wanted to meet him after hearing his story from Colorless Red. However, before they talk, Celestia says she would like to express her gratitude. Kay, confused, asks what he did to deserve that. Celestia reaches into a ripple of light and pulls out the glowing Stella fragment. She holds the radiant light, explaining that not many people know its true meaning. She tells Kay he deserves thanks for retrieving this precious light. Kay humbly stammers that Red's whole team helped retrieve it. Celestia smiles, acknowledging this, but emphasizes that what's truly important is that Kay specifically opened the Black Witch's curtain. She stares at him, asking if he realizes what an incredible thing he has done. Kay stands in stunned silence. Celestia reveals a shocking truth. Not even a luminous like herself has ever been able to open the Black Witch's curtain, because only the witch herself can. She reveals that Stella fragments are scattered throughout the Blacklands, most sealed within these curtains. The city is constantly fighting to claim them, but the only ones obtained so far were luckily exposed outside. Kay looks at Celestia with confusion, admitting he doesn't understand why she is explaining this to him. He points out he doesn't even know how the fragment is used or why it is so important. Celestia admits she should have explained its purpose first. She smiles mysteriously, deciding seeing it in person would be clearer. She warns Kay not to tell anyone about this, as only a few are aware of the truth. Suddenly, the environment shifts. Kay is startled to find himself on a glowing platform high in the air. He is shocked to see the shining city below, bordered by a vast, pitch-black wall of darkness. Kay panics, asking where they are. He sees a massive, radiant castle nearby. Celestia tells him not to panic, explaining they have moved to her residence. She holds out the Stella fragment, telling Kay he is the first person she has shown this to. Extending her hand toward the horizon, she commands him to watch closely. A massive pillar of pure white and rainbow light shoots upward, piercing the sky. The energy surges outward with a deafening boom, creating a massive shockwave of light. Kay stands before the colossal beam in awe. His eyes widen in disbelief. The massive wall of the Blacklands is physically pushed back by the light's force. Kay watches from the high platform as the boundary of darkness retreats, expanding the city's safe territory. In the shining city, a newspaper boy shouts, "Extra news" from a street corner as confetti falls, celebrating a new morning for the city. Citizens gather around newspapers, marveling at yesterday's miracle. They discuss how Lord Luminous's pillar of light pushed back the Blacklands. The first time in decades, humanity reclaimed territory from the darkness. People are optimistic, believing the shining city will expand and be safer from monsters. They hope to one day conquer the Blacklands entirely. Looking at the radiant castle, citizens wonder about the mysterious Lord Luminous, who rarely appears in public while busy protecting the city's light. Meanwhile, the expansion's effects begin. Workers and miners march to the new lands, eager for rare resources and ink that were previously inaccessible. Inside a busy establishment, a man shouts about a new pioneer squad, urging investments. In the background, Kay sits quietly, his face hidden by a hood, holding a newspaper. Nero, the black cat, chews a snack while peeking from Kay's cloak. Kay thinks the city's uproar is natural after yesterday's massive event. A few hours earlier, Kay stood before the glowing form of Celestia in her ethereal realm. She explains the Stella fragment he retrieved is a remarkable item, making many things possible. However, her tone turns serious. She warns Kay the Black Hand, an organization linked to the figure he fought, also hunts the fragment. Once they learn of his power, they will relentlessly try to capture him. Celestia reassures a nervous Kay that the city has warded off the Black Hand for a long time, and she promises to protect him. Her expression turns sorrowful as she reveals a harsh truth. Despite the celebrations, the city is pushing its resources to the limit just to survive the war. She looks at Kay with her rainbow-colored eyes, telling him he is special. She warns that many people will now either fear or try to exploit his unique power. Kay listens as Celestia promises to prevent any trouble from her side. She tells him to continue his activities as a pioneer as he has been. The meeting ends, and Celestia dismisses him. Kay turns to leave the platform. Celestia smiles warmly, saying she enjoyed their talk. Kay looks back nervously, still overwhelmed by the city leader's presence. Celestia mentions she will ensure the red team receives a proper reward for their success. Back at the table, Kay sets down his newspaper. He is rested for a day and wonders what to do next. He thinks of Mari, recalling she was troubled because she had used almost all her ink. Deciding to be productive, Kay leaves coins for payment and considers going mining as he used to. He walks through busy city streets, blending with the crowd as he heads to his destination. He arrives at a large, imposing building where many people are gathered at the entrance. Kay pauses, thinking he never expected to enter this place, the gathering hall for pioneers. He reflects that he couldn't get close when he was colorless. Realizing things have changed, he pulls back his hood, telling himself he can now walk in proudly. As he steps inside, the atmosphere shifts. The other pioneers stop and stare as the dark-haired youth enters. The crowd immediately whispers, asking what he is. They recognize him as the rumored guy who got the color black, the first ever possessor of that color. Onlookers comment the rumors were true, and he looks more eerie up close. They feel uneasy looking at him and question why the Dawn Pioneer Squad recruited him. Others gossip about his achievements, hearing he made a huge contribution on the first exploration. One notes the squad will give him a reward, while others wonder how he caught the eye of the elite colorist Red. From a balcony above, a colorist looks down with interest, commenting the boy is completely pitch black. Ravian asks the colorist why he is standing and tells him to sit. The colorist explains he is just curious about the kid Red recruited. He turns to Arancia, recalling she was at the recent battle, and asks if Kay is as amazing as rumors suggest. Arancia looks thoughtful and admits Kay was indeed impressive. However, she recalls the dark, shadowy entity behind Kay during the fight. She says there were unsettling factors about him, suggesting they keep a close eye on him. Instead of being concerned, the colorist smiles, saying her description makes him more curious about the boy. On the main floor, Kay stands alone, hearing a whisper of his new title, Kay of the Black. Kay approaches the reception counter, where a staff member welcomes him. Kay confirms it's his first time and says he would like to try any available work. The receptionist sees he lacks an official emblem and gives him paperwork. She explains new pioneers are restricted to low-risk missions like ink mining or fighting small creatures. Meanwhile, in a corner, a group of men watches Kay with hostility. One man expresses disgust at Kay's color, calling it revolting and questioning if a human can even be black. He complains Kay feels ominous, like a creature, and criticizes those making a fuss over him. He turns to the man beside him, calling him boss, and asking if he agrees. The boss, a man with dark red hair, sits silently with a cold look. He stares intensely across the room. As Kay finishes at the counter and turns to leave, the red-haired man glares at him, muttering that the black-headed brat is an eyesore. The boss, the examiner who originally rejected Kay, stares at him with deep resentment. He recalls the recent mission when he saw Kay with the elite colorists, admitting he has disliked him ever since. He can't understand why a half-breed who got lucky and caught a colorist's eye can tag along so easily. He heard Kay is a rookie with no experience. Watching Kay leave, the examiner stands, fuming that veterans like him are more qualified for elite squads. He rallies his group to follow, saying they can't let black pollute the city. The four men stand with malicious intent, agreeing to give Kay a proper purification. Meanwhile, Kay has ventured into the wastelands. He stands before a massive, dark cliff that hangs over the landscape like a curtain. He holds up a large, glowing black gem, celebrating that he found another one. Kay identifies the item as chromatic ore. He stands by a pile of colorful gems he has collected, noting this is the first time he has gathered so much. He smiles, thinking mining yields have been low, so this haul is perfect. These ores are used as fuel and weapons, like ink, so they will sell for a high price. Kay imagines Mari's happy face when she sees the resources, and he hands her a heavy sack. His left eye glows with a dark light as he uses his inverted vision. He realizes that thanks to this, collecting resources will be much easier. Over the gray landscape, he sees colorful sparkles of hidden resources normal people cannot. He notes that no matter how dark or hidden, he can see everything clearly. As the energy fades, he reminds himself the technique consumes much color, so he cannot use it long. Kay jokes with the cat on his shoulder, telling Nero he might not have a turn anymore because he is becoming so efficient. Nero nods. Looking at 2 full sacks of ore, Kay realizes he finished sooner than expected. He worries taking this much back now will draw unnecessary attention. He decides to kill time in the wasteland before returning to the city. Kay decides to use the downtime to practice his abilities. With Nero on his shoulder, Kay holds a dark gem, preparing to train. He reflects on his main ability, Ink Drain. He recalls absorbing attacks during the exam and mission, noting that while it requires contact, it sometimes surges out of control against his intent. He realizes he must learn to control this volatile power for his future. He picks up a couple of glowing blue gems to begin experimenting. He admires a gem, noting its vivid color and high price. But as he focuses, his power activates prematurely. Dark energy swirls around his hand, and his ability instantly triggers, draining the stone's energy. Kay panics as the gem turns white and worthless. He yells in frustration, lamenting the cost and scolding his power for absorbing it without permission. Despite the loss, Kay calms down, realizing he got a feel for the sensation. He analyzes past experiences, realizing the more vivid the target's color, the more his power acts on its own. He compares this to hearing whispers near Lord Luminous, and resolves to stay sharp so his power doesn't control him. Kay looks at the dark energy on his chest. He wonders if the colors he absorbs just become black, or if they keep their unique traits. He questions if he can use them in different ways. A theory forms. If black contains all other colors, maybe he is like Lord Luminous. He reaches a stunning conclusion. He might be able to use every color in existence. Kay focuses, trying to recall the specific sensation of power he felt before. He must remember that moment to control his ability. He visualizes Team Leader Red's overwhelming power, recalling the intense, burning red aura. He tries to replicate that feeling, wondering if the heat is the key. Holding a red gem, he concentrates, feeling a heat so intense his whole body feels like it's burning. However, his control fails, and the gem shatters into fragments, leaving Kay shocked and disappointed. Alone in the rocky wasteland, Kay admits mastering this power isn't easy. He accepts he can't expect greatness right away. Despite the setback, he remains determined and resolves to practice until sundown. Hours later, the sky is dark over the canyon. Kay walks through a narrow pass, breathing heavily as he carries a large sack of resources. Sweating and exhausted, he clutches the bag, wondering if he got too greedy and gathered too much. Suddenly, a voice from the shadows mocks him as a slow bastard. Kay looks down, startled to see 4 silhouettes blocking the pass's exit. The figures are the pioneers from the gathering hall. The red-haired boss stands in front with his 3 lackeys, looking at Kay with hostile expressions. Kay looks back, confused. The boss grins maliciously, remarking he didn't expect to meet the city's celebrity here. He greets Kay with a sneer, calling him a little shit. Kay stares back, wary and unsure what these guys are doing there. The red-haired boss's subordinates surround Kay in the rocky canyon, urging him to hurry up. Kay looks unbothered, while the men criticize him for lacking common sense as a new recruit. When Kay calmly asks who they are, the men get offended. However, one of them notices a strange glow from the sack on Kay's back and pauses. He peers closer and is shocked to realize the sack is filled with valuable chromatic ore. Excited, the subordinate turns to the red-haired boss, shouting that Kay has something valuable. The boss, leaning against the wall, remarks that this is great news. He looks at Kay with a greedy smirk, commenting on the rookie's luck, but calling him impudent for trying to keep it to himself. The boss stares at Kay, threatening to get the information out of him. Following orders, the gray-haired subordinate draws a knife and warns Kay not to resist, or he might die. Kay stands silently. Without a word, Kay lets go of the heavy sacks. The subordinate looks down in confusion as the bags hit the ground. Believing Kay has surrendered, the man rummages through the gems, praising Kay for being smart. The gray-haired subordinate smirks, believing Kay is just being obedient. However, before he can finish, Kay launches a sudden attack, landing a heavy punch squarely on the subordinate's face. The red-haired boss watches in surprise, shocked that the rookie dared to strike first. The force of the blow sends the subordinate flying backward. Kay clenches his fist, sighing with frustration that even as a pioneer, he still has to deal with troublesome people. He takes a combat stance, his expression darkening, and orders the group to stop wasting his time and attack because Mari is waiting. Enraged, the subordinate in the red jacket screams insults and charges at Kay with his knife. He thrusts the weapon forward, but Kay easily sidesteps, evading the blade with calm precision. Seizing the opening, Kay delivers a devastating counterpunch to the man's face. The impact sends the attacker smashing into the canyon wall, incapacitating him. Kay suddenly shifts his gaze, sensing another attack from his blind spot. The large subordinate in the green jacket lunges forward, throwing a massive punch. However, the attack is stopped cold as Kay catches the man's fist with one hand. Kay counters by grabbing his wrist and sweeping his legs, twisting the man's arm. As the heavy man falls, Kay prepares a finishing blow. He strikes down hard on the fallen opponent, knocking him out. Standing over the body, Kay remarks that people who covet what belongs to others must pay the price. He turns his attention to the last enemy, but his eyes widen as a red energy bullet is fired at him. Kay barely manages to twist and evade the shot, which smashes into the rock wall behind him. He stares at the smoking crater, realizing the attack came with no warning. Analyzing the damage, Kay notes the terrifying piercing power and realizes the weapon is a long-range dropper. The red-haired boss smirks, surprised the rookie dodged his sneak attack. Holding a massive, smoking gun, he steps forward, complaining that it was a waste because he intended to kill Kay in one shot. With a hateful glare, the boss admits he has disliked Kay from the start. He walks closer, venting his jealousy that he always wanted to join an S-rank corps, implying it is unfair that someone with the black color got in so easily because of connections. He rants, unable to understand why the first wielder of black is special. He visualizes Kay with the elite colorists and expresses disgust that such a repulsive color is receiving so much attention. Gripping his weapon tighter, he announces he has changed his mind. While he originally planned to just break a few bones, he will now kill him. He points his massive gun at Kay, smiling manically, as he declares that since no one knows what happens outside the city, he will simply kill Kay right here. He pulls the trigger, unleashing a barrage of red energy shots. Kay reacts instantly, charging forward and weaving through the deadly beams. He slides low across the ground, narrowly evading the projectiles. Getting within range, Kay throws a powerful punch, but the boss manages to lean back and dodge at the last second. The fight becomes a chaotic close-quarters brawl, with the boss firing frantically while Kay dodges and strikes. Frustrated, the boss curses at him. He yells at Kay to stop clinging to him as his gun glows. Instead of aiming at Kay, the boss fires a powerful blast into the ground. Massive, jagged red crystals erupt, forcing Kay to leap back. Kay stares in shock, wondering what kind of attack that was. Looking at the crystal structure, he realizes it couldn't have been created by simple bullets. The red-haired boss reveals his power, crystallization, which allows him to create rubies and hematite. He boasts that by combining this with his dropper, he can generate powerful ammunition infinitely. The boss unleashes a barrage of crystal shards, shouting that his power is on a different level compared to an impurity like black. K dives behind a large rock formation to avoid the deadly hail. Hiding, K is stressed and admits that dealing with a dropper user is annoying. He analyzes his opponent, estimating he is around a B-rank pioneer. K acknowledges that despite being trash, the man has genuine skill. K looks at his fist, which swirls with black energy. He considers absorbing the bullets but hesitates, recalling that covering himself in black energy hasn't always worked perfectly. A memory of the battle with the sword demon crosses his mind, and he decides that trying to absorb the attack without a plan could lead to a fatal wound. Suddenly, a shadow looms over him. The large subordinate in the green jacket has recovered and reaches out from behind. K turns in surprise, but it is too late. The subordinate grabs K's leg, pinning him. K frantically kicks the man in the face, shouting at him to let go, but the subordinate holds on. Bloodied, the underling screams to his boss that he has K pinned and urges him to shoot. The red-haired boss smiles cruelly, praising his subordinate. Seizing the opportunity, he aims his weapon at the trapped rookie. Screaming for him to die, he pulls the trigger and fires a point-blank shot. K's eyes widen as he realizes he cannot dodge in time. The red energy bullet strikes him directly in the head. The boss cheers, convinced his enemy is dead. He watches the smoke clear, expecting to see a corpse. However, a heavy footstep echoes as K remains standing, his head bowed. The boss's expression shifts to confusion. He stammers in disbelief, watching K slowly walk toward him. As K lifts his head, the boss is terrified to see him alive. A small vortex of red energy swirls on K's forehead as the darkness swallows the bullet. K reflects with relief that his absorption ability worked just in time. The red-haired boss stands frozen, insisting his attack definitely struck the target's head. He watches in horror as K calmly walks toward him, unfazed. Overcome with panic, the boss screams frantically, calling K crazy and demanding he die. He pulls the trigger repeatedly, unleashing a chaotic barrage of gunfire. The red energy bullets slam into K one after another. As the dust settles, the boss stares at the silhouette shrouded in a dark red and black aura. K mocks the boss, coldly asking why he stopped shooting and challenging him to keep using his ability. The red-haired boss grits his teeth in fury and fear, realizing his attacks are ineffective. He stares at the monster in front of him, sweating nervously. K reveals the extent of his power. Black Curtain. The red bullets that struck him are trapped in swirling vortices of black energy on his chest and shoulders, being absorbed. With a menacing smile, K declares that since the boss is out of attacks, it is now his turn. The red-haired boss yells that K is bluffing because no one could take a piercing round and remain fine. The boss aims his weapon again, trying to convince himself that even if K blocked the attack, his insides must be damaged. He declares that K is still just a target. K, however, remains calm. He acknowledges that the bullets are no longer a fatal threat, but realizes there is a drawback. The amount of color he consumes to maintain the defense is higher than what he absorbs. He calculates that using this ability recklessly will drain him too quickly. K decides he needs to deal with the boss's dropper weapon first, but needs a new method to approach him. He wonders aloud if he should try a new trick, confusing the red-haired boss. K picks up a piece of red crystal debris, stating he wants to try mimicking the boss's ability. Suddenly, the black energy in K's hand surges, and he transforms the rock into a long, jagged black spear. The red-haired boss stares, completely shocked. K looks at his new weapon with a satisfied smile, realizing this works perfectly to make up for his lack of range. K grips the spear, explaining he got a feel for the crystallization ability, the power to solidify color while absorbing the boss's attacks. With a mocking expression, K thanks the boss for the lesson and hurls the massive spear at the man. The boss desperately throws himself to the side as the spear crashes violently into the ground. He screams in fury, unleashing a rapid barrage of red energy shots. However, K is ready. Spinning his black spear, he deflects the bullets, creating sparks as black crystal clashes with red energy. K smiles confidently, showing off the swirling black vortices on his chest that absorb the remaining impact. He mocks the boss, reminding him his attacks are useless. Deciding to turn the fight into a training session, K grips his spear and charges, declaring the boss will be his practice dummy. He leaps high into the air, moving with surprising agility. As he descends, the red-haired boss looks up in panic. K slams the weapon into the ground, causing massive spikes of black crystal to erupt, mimicking the boss's earlier attack. The red-haired boss stares in terror, asking how this is possible. He realizes with horror that K is copying his crystallization ability exactly. K grins and asks if he should try a different shape, molding the black energy as he moves. The spear transforms into a massive, curved black blade. K swings the giant blade horizontally, aiming at the dropper. The boss freezes, his eyes wide. He looks down to see the front barrels of his gun sheared off cleanly. He stands paralyzed, unable to believe his weapon has been destroyed so easily. He sweats in disbelief, unable to comprehend why his weapon was shattered by a single strike from a bastard who didn't even use a dropper. As K walks toward him, the boss is terrified that Black possesses a power he doesn't know about and thinks K is a monster. K, however, feels the physical toll of the attack. He clutches his fist, wondering why his energy efficiency is so bad. Despite the fatigue, he regains his composure, deciding the cost doesn't matter since the destructive power was so high. K looks down at the unarmed boss and taunts him, asking what he will do now that his weapon is destroyed. The red-haired boss grinds his teeth in fury. Refusing to give up, the boss shouts at K not to get cocky and unleashes a burst of red energy, screaming about how he climbed to B rank as massive, sharp red crystals erupt from the ground. K stares in shock, realizing he underestimated the man. The boss yells that he knows how to do more than shoot guns and charges forward, surrounded by jagged floating stones, reminding K that his color allows him to create rubies. With a desperate smile, he declares that even without a dropper, he will kill K. He launches a massive volley of sharp red crystals. The projectiles fly with incredible speed, forcing K to cover his head. He faces the barrage head-on. Instead of dodging, he punches through the projectiles, shattering them with his bare fists. He coats his hand in a swirling vortex of black energy, transforming it into a large, heavy shield to withstand the relentless attack. The crystals smash violently against the black barrier, but fail to break through. Seizing the moment, K charges forward, pushing his shield through the storm of red energy. He bursts through the debris, closing the distance. The red-haired boss watches as the black shield shatters his defenses, revealing K charging straight at him. The boss's face twists in shock, realizing his defense has been breached. K winds up and delivers a powerful punch. His fist connects with the red-haired boss's ribs. He cries out in pain, blood spurting from his mouth. Before the boss can collapse, K grabs him by the collar. He lifts the injured man into the air and slams him violently into the ground. The red-haired boss lies defeated, coughing up blood and gasping for air. K looks down at his defeated opponent, asking if he is finally done struggling. He complains that he is busy enough and accuses the boss of making him waste unnecessary energy. The boss's eyes widen in disbelief and fear. He stammers, unable to comprehend how a rookie can possess such overwhelming power. K looks down, unimpressed, asking if that is all he has to say. Terrified, the boss screams, calling him a monster. He shouts that the fact K was born with the color black is disgusting and insists his ability is completely abnormal. K stands silently as the boss insists that K's existence is not ordinary. The boss stares into K's eyes, asking if K has never felt strange about himself. He questions how K can remain so nonchalant while possessing the cursed black color. He laughs hysterically, accusing K of being a monster wearing a human mask. He screams that K is not even human. K falls silent, his expression hidden in shadow. The red-haired boss is confused, unsure why his opponent has stopped speaking. Confusion turns to terror as he gazes into the dark figure looming over him. K leans down, his wide, glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. He stares intensely at the defeated man, his gaze devoid of empathy. The boss is overcome with panic, his eyes trembling. Suddenly, K breaks the tension with a chilling smile. He asks the boss what he has been babbling about. The red-haired boss trembles uncontrollably as K mocks him, questioning why he wants to debate after attacking with such spirit. Deciding he has heard enough, K violently grabs the man by the collar, choking him. K pins the boss down, stating that since the man seems so interested in his ability, he will show it to him properly. He explains his twisted logic. Since the boss and his men coveted K's power, it is only fair that he receives theirs in return. The boss stammers, terrified and confused. Ignoring his pleas, K activates his ability. A swirling vortex of dark energy drains the red color directly from the boss's body, causing him to scream in agonizing pain as his power is forcibly stripped away. After the battle, K sits on a pile of defeated bodies, deep in thought. He realizes that while he planned to just leave the red-haired boss and his men, abandoning them now could cause future problems. People are already wary of his new black color, and he worries that if the men die, rumors will spread that he is a monster who steals power. Panicked at the thought of being seen as a villain, he frantically searches the boss's bag. He triumphantly pulls out a bottle of glowing red personal ink, a valuable recovery item. K forces the liquid down the throats of the boss and his subordinates, watching as their color returns just enough to keep them alive. He then herds the beaten men through the rocky terrain. At the busy eastern entrance of the shining city, a guard is distracted by a noise. He finds the red-haired boss and his lackeys tied together, beaten and unconscious, left like a delivered package. The guard wonders why they are in such a bleached state. Hiding nearby, Kay sighs in relief that he wasn't caught as the guard calls for the gathering hall. He is glad that feeding them the ink was the right choice and hopes the incident will be overlooked. As he walks away through the city carrying a heavy sack, he reassures himself that if any trouble arises, the captain will surely help him. Kay arrives at Mari's workshop, where she is busy working. She asks where he's been, and Kay apologizes, explaining he was on a request. He then grins, teasing that he brought her a surprise. He opens his sack to reveal a blinding pile of multicolored, chromatic ore, leftovers from his request that he brought just for her. Overjoyed, Mari hugs Kay tightly, shouting that he is the best. As he laughs, Mari pulls back with a radiant smile, promising to put the materials to good use. Kay suddenly notices strange, glowing sparkles drifting near her. He recalls seeing a similar green light from Gale, and now feels a warm, yellow glow coming from Mari's inner self. Watching her happily carry the heavy box of ores, Kay thinks about how she always brightens her surroundings. He remembers their childhood in the slums, where she would smile brightly even when there was nothing to smile about. He concludes that this warm, bright color suits her perfectly. Mari excitedly tells Kay she can't wait to show him her secret project. With a proud grin, she announces she has been crafting a custom dropper weapon just for him. Kay's eyes widen in shock. Mari boasts that her engineering skills have improved and that with these high-quality ores, she can upgrade the weapon even further. Suddenly, the workshop door opens. Heavy footsteps enter as a voice states they heard Kay had returned. Ellie Cyan remarks that she expected to find him there. Surprised, Kay asks his teammates, Ellie and Gale, what brings them to the workshop, warning them not to challenge him again. Gale draws his sword, saying it's a shame he can't fight, but Ellie sharply tells him to get to the point. Ellie explains they have been summoned by the Pioneering Corps because Lord Luminous personally praised their mission and wants to give them a reward. Both Kay and Mari are shocked at the mention of the city's supreme leader. Realizing the importance of the summons, Mari pushes Kay to go quickly. When he hesitates, she insists he can see his surprise later and smiles, promising his new weapon will be perfectly finished by the time he returns. Kay smiles back, saying he will look forward to it. At the massive headquarters of the Dawn Pioneering Corps, a woman named Ravian leads Kay, Gale, and Ellie down a long hallway. Kay, seeing the inside of the headquarters for the first time, is impressed by the displays of glowing specimens and certificates. Ravian stops at a large set of double doors and invites them inside. Kay walks into a spacious office where a woman sits behind a desk. With a pleasant smile, she introduces herself as Camellia, the captain of the Dawn Pioneering Corps. Kay stands nervously, unable to believe he is standing before the famous multicolor wielder he's only read about in newspapers. Camellia tells them not to be nervous, explaining she called them because she was surprised colorist Red had praised his new recruit so highly. She turns her attention to Kay, noting that as the first wielder of black, his appearance made the city's leadership anxious. However, her elegant demeanor breaks as she gags on her tea, shouting that it is incredibly bitter. After Ravian scolds her for lacking dignity, Camellia regains her composure and gets straight to their rewards. She explains they will each receive a personal safe, and Ravian holds out a tray with 3 cards where their pay and rewards have been deposited. As they take their cards, all 3 recruits gasp in unison, shocked by the amount of money. Kay trembles, realizing he could easily buy a house. Camellia then presents them with C-rank Pioneer ID cards, explaining that because of their proven skills, the Corps has decided to skip their probationary period. Finally, Camellia announces the last reward. The famous Chromatic Workshop will custom-make new droppers for them. The 3 recruits stand in stunned silence. Ellie asks in disbelief if it's true. Noting the workshop is so exclusive, even nobles have trouble booking an appointment. Camellia laughs, explaining that the Corps is a VIP client and that the Chromatic Workshop is the best in the city. Gale and Ellie are thrilled. Camellia formally welcomes the 3 of them to the Dawn Pioneering Corps, promising her full support. Her expression turns serious as she mentions the fragment they brought back, revealing it is a critically important item connected to the city's survival. She smiles mischievously, saying she looks forward to their future activities. Later, Kay stands outside a large building with a gear motif, satisfied with his day. He smiles at Nero, asking if it doesn't feel like only good things are happening. He reflects on his rapid promotion to C rank and feels glad he became a pioneer. As he approaches Mari's workshop, he looks forward to sharing the good news. However, his expression shifts to confusion as he finds the front door already slightly ajar. Kay pushes it open slowly, calling out Mari's name. The scene inside freezes him in his tracks. The workshop is completely destroyed. Tools are scattered, pipes are broken, and the floor is littered with wreckage. Kay stands alone in the doorway, his eyes wide with shock and horror as he stares at the ruins of his friend's workplace.